Chapter 145. Ji Tianxing took the black dragon's sword and Qianyu and put them into the 100 treasures pouch. Of course, he also put the dozens of spiritual fruits and dawn left on the table into the pouch. Xiang Wuji saw him do this and frowned, but he didn't say anything. He sat on the chair and drank a few mouthfuls of wine. He asked casually, "Kid, what is the Fengyun Yard learning this month?" Ji Tianxing answered honestly, "This month, Deacon Han is teaching us arrays. At the end of the month, there will be a test." "Arrays?" Xiang Wuji was startled and a strange look flashed across his eyes. He drank from the gourd and thought to himself, Qiu Yu's disciple was the most talented array genius in the house. No one in the entire Tianshan region can compare to him. Ji Tianxing, if this kid is really the descendant of Qiu Yu's disciple, he should be able to inherit some of Qiu Yu's array talents. Thinking about this, Xiang Wuji put down the gourd and asked Ji Tianxing slowly, "Kid, you must be a rich young master in the mortal world, right? What does your family do?" Ji Tianxing didn't know why he would ask this, but he still answered truthfully, "Senior, this junior's family is proficient in forging tools, and this is our profession." "Making weapons?" Xiang Wuji frowned and muttered to himself, "I thought it was a family of arrays. I didn't think it was making weapons." However, making weapons is also related to arrays. With Qiu Yu's array talents, even if he makes weapons, he will be able to create a great family business. He paused for a moment, then asked Ji Tianxing, "Kid, have you seen your great-grandmother?" Ji Tianxing shook his head and said calmly, "Only my father and uncles are still alive. My grandfather passed away a long time ago. I have never seen my great-grandmother." "Oh." Xiang Wuji nodded and didn't ask more. He frowned and fell into deep thought. "Back then, my disciple Qiu Yu's talent in array Dao stunned the entire Tianshan region. She was my greatest pride. This brat is the descendant of Qiu Yu's disciple. This old man will teach him well and definitely won't let him lose face for Qiu Yu's disciple." After making up his mind, Xiang Wuji got up and walked out of the door. He walked to the center of the courtyard and stood still on the ground paved with bluestone. He waved at Ji Tianxing. "Brat, come here." Ji Tianxing didn't know what was going on, so he hurriedly walked into the courtyard and stood in front of him. Xiang Wuji pointed at the limestone floor beneath his feet and asked with a serious expression, "Observe the ground carefully and tell this old man what you see." Ji Tianxing looked down at the ground under his feet and observed carefully. The bluestone floor was about 6 meters in radius. At first glance, it looked ordinary. However, after taking a closer look, he noticed that the bluestone slabs were of different sizes and were arranged in different orders and directions. The gaps between the slabs were like lines. They seemed to contain some kind of pattern and formed a strange pattern. Ji Tianxing frowned and thought for a moment. He suddenly looked up at Xiang Wuji and said with certainty, "Elder, if I am not wrong, this should be an array." Xiang Wuji nodded and said calmly, "Not bad. You have some eyesight. You can see that this is an array." However, he thought to himself, disciples with ordinary talent in array Dao can only see patterns. Only those with great talent can see that this is an array. It seems that this brat has some talent in array Dao. This old man will observe more. He looked at Ji Tianxing calmly and asked, "Normally, there are 4 types of arrays: illusion arrays, trap arrays, killing arrays, and support arrays. Take a closer look. What type of formation is this? If you are not sure, this old man will allow you to use vital energy to investigate." Ji Tianxing nodded and continued to observe the array beneath his feet. He had already learned the basics of array Dao. Of course, he knew that there were 4 types of arrays. Illusion arrays, trap arrays, and killing arrays were needless to say. As for support arrays, they were usually used to aid in cultivation or to nurture medicinal ingredients. For example, the secret room in his room had an energy-gathering array. It was used to gather the energy of heaven and earth to aid in cultivation. This was a support array. After a moment of careful observation, Ji Tianqing had a preliminary answer. He guessed that the array beneath his feet was a support array. However, he did not dare to answer rashly. He pressed his palms against the bluestone slabs on the ground and released his vital energy to further investigate the array. His vital energy surged into the bluestone slabs and he quickly found that the ground was warm and moist. There was a vast amount of qi of the green wood. After thinking for a while, he said to Xiang Wuji with certainty, "Elder, from what I see, this array is a support array. It should be used to nurture medicinal ingredients." Xiang Wuji smiled and nodded, "That's right, you're right. This wood spiritual array is indeed used to cultivate medicinal herbs. Since you have some talent in array Dao, then I will test you today." Then, he waved his hand and shot out a dark green vital energy beam that surged into the bluestone slabs. The bluestone slabs lit up with green light. The cracks on the bluestone slabs also turned into green lines that emitted a mysterious power. In the blink of an eye, a dark green light barrier appeared. This light barrier was like an inverted bowl that enveloped Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing looked around and found that the scenery around him had changed. The yard had disappeared. He was actually in a dense and lush forest with a radius of 1,000 meters. Below his feet was soft green grass and all around him were towering trees. He could not see the end of the forest. He could not see the situation outside the forest. He could only look up and see a dark green wall of light above his head. It was obvious that Xiang Wuji had activated the wood spiritual array and trapped him inside. Just as he was looking around, Xiang Wuji appeared beside him. He stroked his white beard and said with a smile, "Kid, you are now inside the wood spiritual array. If you can break the array and walk out of it, then come see me in the main hall. I will reward you. Otherwise, you can stay here forever and help this old man with the fields and weeds." After that, Xiang Wuji laughed evilly and disappeared into thin air. After he left the wood spiritual array, he walked back to the main hall with his hands behind his back. He lay down on a rattan chair and drank wine leisurely while humming a tune. In the quiet courtyard, there was only a green light shield with a radius of 6 meters. It was the wood spiritual array. From the outside, it looked like the array was only 6 meters wide. Actually, there was another world inside the array. It was very mysterious. Xiang Wuji lifted his wine gourd and drank 2 mouthfuls. Glancing at the green light shield in the yard, he murmured with a smile, although this wood spiritual array of mine is only a mystic level middle grade array, only mystic realm warriors can successfully break it. If you can break it in a day, then you have inherited Xiao Yu's talent in arrays. I will teach you everything I know. Otherwise, you wouldn't be worth this old man's time. Today, the 6th chapter has arrived. From now on, there will be 6 chapters every day. I hope you can add this book to your bookshelf and vote for it. Thank you. Chapter 146. Ji Tianqing stood in the dense forest and did not act rashly. Although this wood spiritual array was very mysterious, and it was unbelievable that there was a space of 1,000 meters in a small array. But he was sure that the grass under his feet and the towering trees around him were all real and not illusions. Being in this array, he could feel that the air was filled with thick wood spiritual qi, emitting the fragrance of plants. Without a doubt, this was a holy place for recuperation and healing. If a seriously injured person were to heal here, their injuries would recover faster. If a martial artist with wood spiritual qi were to cultivate here, he would get twice the result with half the effort and his strength would increase quickly. Ji Tianqing stood in the center of the array and carefully observed for a while. Then he decided to try to break through the array. Although arrays are the means of martial artists, they also need to borrow the power of heaven and earth and follow the principles of yin and yang and the 5 elements. Since the array has an entrance, there must be an exit. I'll go through this forest and walk to the edge of the array to see if I can find the exit. After making up his mind, he began to walk forward. As long as he passed through the dense forest that was 1,000 meters long, he would reach the edge of the wood spiritual array. Ji Tianqing stepped on the soft grass, pushed aside the dense leaves in front of him, and walked straight forward. However, after he took a few steps, the grass and forest behind him changed silently. The grass and towering trees were like living creatures that could move and change their positions on their own. Unfortunately, these changes were too subtle and silent. Ji Tianqing did not notice them. After 15 minutes, he quickly passed through the forest and walked 1,000 meters. Logically speaking, he should have passed through the forest and reached the edge of the array. But this was not the case. He saw that the scene in front of him had not changed at all. It was still the dense forest, and he could not see the end. He was still surrounded by the dense forest, and he was still on the grass in the center of the array, as if he had never left. Ji Tianqing had to stop, and a playful smile appeared on his face. So it's not just an auxiliary array, but also a maze. This forest is like a maze. If I continue to walk like this, I'm afraid I'll never be able to get out. Looks like I have to think of another way to break it. Ji Tianqing frowned and thought for a moment. Then, he took out Qian Yu and Black Dragon's sword from his 100 treasures brocade pouch. Qian Yu was sleeping in the brocade pouch. When he was pulled out by Ji Tianqing, he grumbled with some dissatisfaction, "Old Ji, next time you come looking for me, let me know first. Isn't it rude of you to drag me out like this?" Ji Tianqing just smiled and didn't tease it. "I'm in the old man's wood spirit formation. This is his test for me. I have to break the formation as soon as possible. Qian Yu, I need your help." When Qian Yu heard that the old man was testing him, he immediately became interested. "Tell me, how can I help you?" Ji Tianqing pointed at the dark blue sky above his head. "Fly to the highest point in the sky and watch for me from there. This forest with a radius of 1,000 meters is a maze. Help me keep an eye on the changes in the forest. Pay attention and observe carefully." Qian Yu immediately understood what he meant. He nodded and flew high up in the sky, overlooking the entire forest from above. After looking around for a moment, he shouted, "Okay, old Ji, I can clearly observe the whole formation. You can start now." Hearing Qian Yu's voice, Ji Tianqing carried the Black Dragon sword and continued to move deeper into the forest. But this time, when he passed through the forest, every time he passed a towering tree, he would use the Black Dragon sword to carve a mark on the tree. Soon, a quarter of an hour passed. Ji Tianqing continued to walk for more than 1,000 meters, but he was still trapped in the center of the formation. He was still trapped in the maze and couldn't get out. Even the marks he made on the trees with his sword had mysteriously disappeared. Ji Tianqing had to stop. He waved to Qian Yu in the sky and motioned for it to come down. Qian Yu flew back in front of him. Before he could ask, it pouted and said, "That stinky old man is too insidious. The formation he set up is a bit strange. Old Ji, I can see very clearly from the sky. When you walk, the entire forest is constantly changing positions and moving. Although you keep walking, you are always going in circles within 100 meters. If this continues, you won't be able to get out even if you walk for another year." Hearing Qian Yu's words, Ji Tianqing didn't feel depressed. Instead, he smiled. As expected, it's just as I expected. By the way, Qian Yu, you've been observing from the sky for so long. Did you see it carefully?" Qian Yu nodded and said, "Of course. Didn't I tell you? My 5 senses are very strong. My vision can reach dozens of miles." The corners of Ji Tianqing's mouth curled up into a smile as he asked, "Then tell me, if the entire forest is moving and changing, what is there that remains unchanged? Something that hasn't changed?" Qian Yu suddenly frowned, her big eyes rolling a few times as she carefully tried to recall. After a while, it suddenly thought of something and said, "I remember now. It's a small stream. That stream is hidden in the forest. No one can find it except for me. It's about 150 meters southeast of you. In the last 15 minutes, no matter how the entire forest changed, the stream was always there. It didn't move or change." "Great. Ji Tianqing revealed a joyful expression and said with a smile, "It seems that the key to breaking the formation lies in that small stream. Qianyu, I'll have to trouble you again. You have to help me find that stream." "Okay." Qianyu agreed. It quickly flew up into the sky and looked down at the entire forest. Ji Tianqing lifted his feet and walked towards the southeast, his heart full of anticipation. After he took 10 steps, Qianyu quickly reminded him, "Old Ji, you're off course. 9 more steps to the south." Ji Tianqing smiled faintly and walked south according to its instructions. After dozens of steps, Qianyu reminded him again, "Old Ji, you're off course again. 10 more steps to the east." With the help of Qianyu, Ji Tianqing walked over 1,000 steps and finally arrived at the stream. The stream was only 1 meter wide. It was hidden in the dense forest and grass. If one didn't walk close enough, they wouldn't be able to find it. The stream was cold and clear. No one knew where it came from or where it flowed to. Ji Tianqing followed the stream to the source and whispered, "This is a wood spiritual array. It gathers the wood spiritual qi to cultivate the old man's herbs. Although the array is full of spiritual qi, the forest and grass need not only spiritual qi but also water to grow. The array won't produce water out of thin air, so the water in this stream must have flowed in from outside the array. As long as I reach the source of the stream, I'll be able to find the exit." About a quarter of an hour later, Ji Tianqing followed the stream to the edge of the array. In front of him was a clear pool of water. This was where the stream flowed out from. Ji Tianqing put away Qianyu and the black dragon sword into his 100 treasures pouch and jumped into the pool without hesitation. Just as he expected, after he passed through a passage at the bottom of the pool, he swam into an ancient well. Splash! Ji Tianqing floated to the surface of the water. He raised his head and looked up. As expected, he saw the blue sky outside the well. Immediately, a gratified smile appeared on his face. As expected. "Hee, I broke the wood spiritual array in just 2 hours. The smelly old man definitely didn't expect this, right?" Chapter 147. Xiang Wuji was in the main hall, lying on a rattan chair, leisurely drinking wine. Probably because he drank a little too much, his old face was flushed red and his eyes were tightly shut. He looked like he was about to fall asleep. Anyway, that kid needs at least half a day to break the array. This old man will sleep for a while. Xiang Wuji smacked his lips, put the wine gourd into his black thumb ring, and closed his eyes to rest. After a while, he started snoring and fell asleep. At this time, 2 hands reached out from the well in the corner of the yard and climbed out. It was Ji Tianqing. His hair and green robe were wet, and water kept dripping down to his feet. It was noon, and the sun was blazing in the sky, and the air was hot. Ji Tianqing wrung the water off his robe and sleeves, and walked straight to the main hall. Before he entered, he heard snoring coming from the room. "Hee, the old man is actually asleep. Is he pretending to be asleep? Is he trying to trick me?" Ji Tianqing grinned silently, and tiptoed into the room. He quietly walked to Xiang Wuji's side, wanting to see if Xiang Wuji was really asleep or just pretending. When he was 5 steps away from Xiang Wuji suddenly opened his eyes, and subconsciously waved his hand, sending out a ray of sword light towards Ji Tianqing. The ray of sword light was over a meter long, and was extremely sharp and violent. It could even cut through a city wall with one slash. Ji Tianqing's expression changed drastically, and he broke out in cold sweat. He immediately used the shadowless steps, and retreated 3 meters away. Even so, the ray of sword light was too fast, and had already reached his ear. Luckily, Xiang Wuji had already woken up. After realizing that something was wrong, he stopped in time. That sharp and fierce sword light was hovering right next to Ji Tianqing's ear, only 2 inches away from his neck. If Xiang Wuji had stopped a second later, his head would have been separated from his body, and he would have died on the spot. Hiss! Ji Tianqing was still in shock, and couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. He said angrily, "Old man, what are you doing? Old man, you don't have to be so cruel to me. You almost chopped my head off." Xiang Wuji moved his finger, and quickly retracted the ray of sword light. Only then did he wake up, and he turned to Ji Tianqing. Kid, why are you out? What time is it? How long have I been asleep?" Ji Tianqing said expressionlessly, "It's half of the afternoon." Xiang Wuji immediately stood up with a face full of surprise. He frowned and looked at the sky outside. "I just fell asleep for a while, and you've already come out of the wood spirit formation? This is impossible. It's only been 2 hours since you entered the formation. How could you break the formation in 2 hours?" Xiang Wuji couldn't believe that someone could break the wood spirit array in 2 hours. In the past 100 years, other than Qiu Yu's disciple, no one else could do it. Now, Ji Tianqing did it. How could he not be shocked? Could it be that this kid's array talent is as outstanding as Qiu Yu's disciple? He completely inherited Qiu Yu's talent? Thinking about this, Xiang Wuji's blood boiled, and he was very excited. The way he looked at Ji Tianqing was also filled with excitement and anticipation, as if he had seen a perfect piece of jade. He believed that this perfect piece of jade, after being polished by him, would become a rare treasure. After a while, Xiang Wuji calmed down. He stared at Ji Tianqing and asked seriously, "Kid, tell me, how did you break through the array?" Ji Tianqing didn't hide it, and answered honestly, "Your array may be a supporting array, but it has the effect of an illusion array. The forest inside is a maze, and if you don't break it, you can't get out. I found a way to find a small stream and guessed that it was the base of the array. I found the source of the stream and climbed out of the well." Xiang Wuji nodded as he listened, and a rare smile appeared on his old face. Not bad, not bad. Your way of thinking is correct. Ehem. I said before that I would reward you. Now, I will fulfill my promise." Hearing that there was a reward, Ji Tianqing's anger dissipated. He asked with anticipation, "What reward are you going to give me?" Xiang Wuji looked at him solemnly and said in a serious tone, "This old man has decided to teach you array Dao techniques and nurture you into an array Dao grandmaster." Then, he looked at Ji Tianqing with a smug expression. In his opinion, any disciple who heard these words would be so excited that they would tremble. However, what he expected did not happen. Ji Tianqing stilled and then bowed. "Many thanks for Elder's guidance. Junior is very grateful." Actually, he was muttering inside, I thought that this old man would reward me with some spiritual dan to help me increase my strength." Xiang Wuji's smile disappeared. He asked with a frown, "Stinking brat, what's with your expression? Aren't you excited? I am going to teach you arrays. That is a blessing that other people can only envy. Are you really not excited at all?" Seeing this, Ji Tianqing could only squeeze out a smile. Junior is grateful to Elder for his kindness. I will never forget it. What a hypocrite. Of course, Xiang Wuji could tell that he was lying and scolded him. "No matter if you are happy or not, I will teach you. In the future, you will stay in Great Peace Palace and don't need to return to Wind Cloud Yard." Ji Tianqing finally remembered that Xiang Wuji's status was very high. If he really wanted to ask Wind Cloud Yard for him, Han Xiaoxing would not dare to refuse. Thinking of this, he hurriedly complimented Xiang Wuji and flattered him a bit. Only then did Xiang Wuji's anger dissipate. Xiang Wuji thought of the previous matter and warned with a serious expression, "Brat, in the future, don't sneak around in Great Peace Palace. Otherwise, if I don't stop one day, you will die an unjust death." Ji Tianqing nodded and said with a face full of agreement, "There is a saying in the mortal kingdoms, accompanying a ruler is like accompanying a tiger. I feel the same way now." Xiang Wuji glared at him and scolded, "What do you know? I am always on guard. Even when I am asleep, I am always on guard. I have roamed the continent for 200 years. I have traveled through dozens of regions and encountered countless dangers. If I had not been careful, do you think I would have been able to survive until now? Ji Tianqing came to a realization and said sincerely, Senior, it seems like you're a powerhouse with a story. When are you going to tell me about your adventures in the world? Xiang Wuji nodded proudly and said, Of course. As for telling stories, we will talk about it when we have time. Right now, come with me to the study. I will teach you arrays. Chapter 148. Ji Tianqing followed Xiang Wuji into the study and listened attentively to the teachings of formations. From noon to late at night, for 12 hours, he listened intently to Xiang Wuji's teachings. Even though Xiang Wuji said he was going to teach him formations. But formations were not like martial arts that could be taught directly and make someone become a powerful cultivator overnight. The so-called array path absolute art was actually a combination of array path knowledge and experience. It was not something that could be taught in a day or two. Xiang Wuji was not only skilled in martial arts, he was also skilled in alchemy and formations. In his own words, he was an all-round cultivator and ranked in the top 3 in the entire Tianshan zone. Even with Ji Tianqing's talent, it would take him at least 10 years to learn all the formations he had learned in his life. Therefore, Xiang Wuji followed the principle of gradual improvement and taught Ji Tianqing the basics of formations and experience. Since Ji Tianqing already had a foundation in formations, he skipped over the primary level formations and started with the Xian level formations. Ji Tianqing didn't just have a foundation in formations, his talent in formations was not bad. When he listened to Xiang Wuji's teachings, he understood immediately and learned immediately. He could also infer many things from one example. In this way, his 12 hours of study was equivalent to 3 to 5 days of study for an ordinary disciple. This made Xiang Wuji very satisfied and he found him more and more pleasing to the eye. In the middle of the night, Xiang Wuji went back to his room to rest and stopped teaching. Kid, it's too late. You don't need to go back to the Feng Yun Yard tonight. Stay in the Graden Palace. Ji Tianqing nodded to show he understood. But after thinking, he asked, Elder, which room should I sleep in? Sleep? Xiang Wuji frowned and scolded, You are so young. You don't work hard and you want to sleep? Look at those lazy people who love to sleep. Which one of them can become a powerful cultivator? They don't have talent and don't work hard. How can they become strong? Ji Tianqing was reprimanded by him. He lowered his head and whispered, Don't you like to sleep all day? Xiang Wuji glared at him and scolded, You stinking brat. Originally, this old man wanted to let you rest in the pill room, but now, this old man has changed his mind. Scram to the woodshed for this old man and meditate to cultivate. After saying this, Xiang Wuji flung his sleeves and left in a huff. Ji Tianqing rubbed his nose regretfully and murmured with a wry smile, If I had known that the old man was hot-tempered, why would I have talked back to him? Aren't you just asking for trouble? With a sigh, he walked to the woodshed with a helpless expression and sat in a corner to cultivate. The next day, Ji Tianqing finished his cultivation early in the morning and went to the well to draw water to wash his face. He'd just finished washing up when the mute sword servant quickly walked into the courtyard and arrived by his side. Although the sword servant couldn't speak, he made a few hand gestures to him. After half a month of interaction, Ji Tianqing was already familiar with the sword servant and could understand his hand gestures. It turned out that a female disciple had come to the Graden Palace to look for him and was waiting outside the gate. Ji Tianqing thanked the sword servant and hurriedly walked to the gate of the Graden Palace. As he walked, he wondered which female disciple would come to the Graden Palace to look for him early in the morning. I only know 2 or 3 female disciples in the sect. Who could it be? Ku's injuries haven't recovered yet, so it shouldn't be her. If Xian came to look for me, she would have come in directly and wouldn't wait for me at the gate. After a while, Ji Tianqing walked to the gate. When he was still 100 steps away, he saw a beautiful woman in a long white dress standing outside the gate. She had a graceful figure and was extremely beautiful. Without a doubt, that beautiful woman in white was Yunyao. Not far behind Yunyao, her white spirit crane was still standing tall and upright. Ji Tianqing quickly walked to Yunyao's side and greeted her with a smile. "Eldest senior sister, why are you looking for me so early in the morning? What's the matter?" Yunyao's expression was a little serious. She nodded at him and went straight to the point. "Junior brother Tianqing, master has given me an important task today. I need your help." "You need my help?" Ji Tianqing frowned and asked doubtfully. "Eldest senior sister, it's not that I'm looking down on myself, but with my strength, I'm afraid it's very difficult to help you, right?" Yunyao said calmly, "This has nothing to do with your strength. I'll tell you the details later. Go and pack your things. You'll leave the sect with me later. This task might take a few days." Ji Tianqing saw her serious expression and guessed that the task was difficult. He nodded and said, "Okay, wait for me here for a while. I'll be back soon." In fact, all of his belongings were in the 100 treasures brocade pouch. There was nothing to pack. He returned to the Graydon Palace again and only reported to Xiang Wuji, in case Xiang Wuji couldn't find him for a few days and got angry again. After a while, he returned to the gate and jumped onto the back of the spirit crane with Yunyao. The spirit crane let out a clear cry and flapped its wings to fly out of the sect. After leaving the Sky Pillar sect, the spirit crane flew over a large mountain and landed on a grassland 15 miles away from the Sky Pillar sect. Seeing this familiar grassland, Ji Tianqing immediately frowned and thought to himself, "A few days ago, I killed Ji Ling here. Why did eldest senior sister bring me here?" Seeing Yunyao jump onto the grass, he quickly jumped down as well. He looked around and found a male disciple in a white robe standing in the forest not far away. He was leading a huge silver wolf. He followed Yunyao into the forest and saw that the male disciple was Bai Wuchen. When Bai Wuchen saw the two of them arrive, he quickly went up to them and said to Yunyao, "Eldest senior sister, I've borrowed the mysterious treasure pagoda from the second elder." With that, he stretched out his right hand. A golden light flashed in his palm, and a small and exquisite golden pagoda that was about 3 inches tall appeared. Yunyao nodded slightly and said in a deep voice, "There's no time to lose. Let's start the search now." Ji Tianqing was a little puzzled and quickly asked Yunyao, "Eldest senior sister, what are we searching for?" Yunyao explained with a serious expression, "4 days ago, Ji Ling's body disappeared. Sect Master used the star map to find out that it was the demons who took his body." Ji Tianqing's body trembled. From her words, he understood a lot of information. Only now did he know that the Sky Pillar sect master had long known about him killing Ji Ling and had even tacitly approved of it. Moreover, on the day he killed Ji Ling's body was taken away by the demons. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but ask, "Ji Ling is already dead. Why did the demons want his body?" Yunyao said in a serious tone, "The demon powerhouses have the blood demon secret technique. Even if Ji Ling is dead, they can still extract his soul. Ji Ling once entered the sect's forbidden area and knew the sect's core secrets. If the demon powerhouses interrogate his soul and find out the sect's secrets, it will be troublesome. Therefore, the mission that sect master gave us is to find Ji Ling's soul no matter what." Chapter 149. Ever since Ji Tianqing killed Ji Ling, he had put this matter aside. A person's death was like an extinguished lamp. With Ji Ling dead, he thought this matter was over. But after listening to Yunyao's explanation, he realized that this matter was not over. It even left behind a huge hidden danger. At the same time, he felt a deep sense of fear towards the strange and mysterious demon race. She's already dead, but they can still extract her soul to interrogate her for secrets? The demon race actually has such an evil secret technique? It's unbelievable. Ji Tianqing muttered with a grave expression. Then, he asked Yunyao, "Eldest senior sister, how do we find the whereabouts of Ji Ling's soul?" Without waiting for Yunyao to explain, Bai Wuchen answered, second elder's mysterious pagoda is an incomparably mysterious treasure. It can use blood as a guide to find the whereabouts of Ji Ling's corpse. He looked at Ji Tianqing with a burning gaze and said in a low voice, "Didn't Ji Ling steal your bloodline? Your bloodline flows in her body, so there's a connection between you and her. Later, I'll activate the mysterious pagoda's array formation. I'll need a drop of your blood as a guide to help the mysterious pagoda search for Ji Ling's whereabouts." Ji Tianqing immediately understood. He nodded and thought to himself, "No wonder eldest senior sister needs my help. This matter has nothing to do with strength. So they just need my blood." He thought for a moment and said to Yun Yao, "Eldest senior sister, since you only need my blood as a guide, then it's easy. I'll give you a drop of my blood, then you can go and carry out the mission. I won't be going with you. I still have to go back and cultivate." Last month, the Wind Cloud Courtyard wanted to take the alchemy test. In the end, he was framed by Ji Ling and was locked in the dark wind cave for more than 10 days, delaying his alchemy. If Xiang Wuji hadn't taught him alchemy, he definitely wouldn't have passed the test and would have been punished. This month, the Wind Cloud Courtyard wanted to take the array formation test again. He didn't want to waste any more time and affect his cultivation. Previously, he was lucky enough to pass the alchemy test and even take first place. But he knew very well that a person couldn't always have good luck. If he did not study formations diligently, it was very likely that he would rank last in this month's formation test. Before Yun Yao could say anything, Bai Wuchen gave her a contemptuous look. "I say, junior martial brother Tianqing, you're not afraid of the ferocity of the demon race, so you're deliberately looking for an excuse to evade, right?" Ji Tianqing glanced at him expressionlessly and said indifferently, "Senior brother Bai, don't measure the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain." Bai Wuchen's face darkened, and he shouted, "Ji Tianqing. Who are you calling a villain?" He didn't like Ji Tianqing to begin with. It was a rare opportunity for him to insult Ji Tianqing in front of Yun Yao. Of course, he wouldn't miss it. He didn't expect that Ji Tianqing would be so bold as to mock him, an elite genius. How could he not be angry? At this moment, Yun Yao frowned slightly and took a step forward to stand between the two of them. She looked at Ji Tianqing calmly and said sincerely, "Junior martial brother Tianqing, there's something you don't know. Although the Xianji Pagoda can use your blood as a guide to find traces of Ji Ling's corpse, it can only be located at a certain distance. If it's too far away, the Xianji Pagoda can only point out the direction, but not the exact location. We still need your help in this operation. Come with us." After listening to Yun Yao's explanation, Ji Tianqing finally understood the reason. To be fair, Yun Yao had always treated him well. Since Yun Yao asked for his help, how could he refuse? Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and nodded in agreement. "If that's the case, I'll go with you." "Thank you, junior martial brother Tianqing." Yun Yao nodded slightly and thanked him. Ji Tianqing glanced at Bai Wuchen. Seeing that he was still angry, Ji Tianqing said in a playful tone, "Eldest senior sister is very powerful. My essence blood can find traces of Ji Ling's corpse. We are all indispensable to this mission. I'd like to know, senior martial brother Bai, why do you want to go with us?" Bai Wuchen had insulted him just now. Of course, he wouldn't take it lying down. He had to return the favor. As expected, Bai Wuchen felt that his dignity was being challenged. He glared at Ji Tianqing angrily. "Ji Tianqing. I'm proficient in formations and I can control the Xianji Pagoda." Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said mockingly, "Oh? Eldest senior martial sister, are you not proficient in formations and can't control the Xianji Pagoda?" Yun Yao was the #1 genius in the Tianshan region. Not only was she extremely talented in martial arts, but she was also proficient in formations and alchemy. Naturally, she could control the Xianji Pagoda. Bai Wuchen's face turned green. He clenched his fists in anger. He wanted to beat Ji Tianqing up. Seeing this, Yun Yao had to mediate the situation again. "Junior martial brother Tianqing, master asked junior martial brother Bai to help me." Ji Tianqing didn't say anything else. He didn't want to put Yun Yao in a difficult position. Bai Wuchen also knew his limits. He didn't want to make things too difficult for Yun Yao. The matter was settled. The three-man team was formed. Although they didn't get along well. Bai Wuchen also took out the Xianji pagoda. He cleared his mind and activated the formation to activate the pagoda. Then, Ji Tianqing cut his finger with his sword and forced out a drop of blood essence from his heart. He dripped it into the Xianji pagoda. The Xianji pagoda, which was emitting a golden light, started to spin rapidly. It released a mysterious and invisible force that surged into the dark sky. Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao stared at the Xianji pagoda, waiting for the results. After about 100 breaths, the Xianji pagoda's spinning speed slowed down. Finally, it stopped. Ji Tianqing could see that one of the 8 corners of the golden pagoda was blood red. It was pointing northwest. Obviously, Ji Ling's body should be northwest of the Sky Pillar sect. Go northwest. Let's go. Yun Yao immediately gave the order. She jumped onto the spirit crane with Ji Tianqing and flew into the sky. Bai Wuchen also put away the Xianji pagoda. He rode on the giant silver wolf and rushed northwest at lightning speed. On the way, he looked up at the spirit crane in the sky. On the back of the spirit crane, Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao stood side by side. They seemed to be chatting. Seeing this, Bai Wuchen could not help but feel jealous. His face turned cold. Damn Ji Tianqing. A country bumpkin from a small country is getting closer and closer to senior sister. Unfortunately, the sect leader seems to be secretly watching this kid. Otherwise, how could I let him be so close to senior sister? Bai Wuchen already hated Ji Tianqing when they were still in the Royal Azure Dynasty. Of course, it was more accurate to say that he was jealous. However, this kind of jealousy was not enough to make him want to kill. He did think of ways to chase Ji Tianqing out of the sect to prevent Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao from getting closer and closer. However, he did not expect that Ji Tianqing would be secretly watched by the sect leader. This caught him off guard and he could not carry out his plan for the time being. He could only pray silently in his heart that there would be a chance to fulfill his wish in this mission. Chapter 150. Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing rode on the spirit crane and flew high up in the sky, heading straight for the northwest direction. Ji Tianqing thought of a crucial question. He had some doubts and asked Yun Yao. Eldest senior sister, the devil race took Ji Ling's body. Could they have escaped from the Star Ancient Realm? Yun Yao shook her head and explained, the Star Ancient Realm is an independent space that has always been guarded by our sect. Even the devil race's experts can't enter and leave as they please. In the past 100 years, the devil race's experts have infiltrated our sect several times. Therefore, master suspects that the devil race has always been hiding in the Star Ancient Realm, waiting for an opportunity to make a move. Ji Tianqing nodded and said in a serious tone, so that's the case. The Star Ancient Realm is rich in spiritual energy and resources. Since the devil race is hiding in the Star Ancient Realm, they don't lack cultivation resources. Moreover, the Star Ancient Realm is vast. If the devil race is hiding there, it will be extremely difficult to find them. Yun Yao continued, the devil race's headquarters is very far from here. After they took Ji Ling's body, they had to use a secret technique to extract Ji Ling's soul within a few days. After 7 days, Ji Ling's soul will dissipate from the world. Therefore, the devil race must be hiding in the Star Ancient Realm to extract Ji Ling's soul as soon as possible. Because of this, Yun Yao was sure that the devil race was hiding somewhere in the Star Ancient Realm. After listening to her explanation, Ji Tianqing's doubts were dispelled and he didn't ask about it anymore. Very quickly, 2 hours passed. The spirit crane carried Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao for 400 miles and entered a boundless mountain range. Looking down from high up in the sky, one could see towering mountain peaks of different heights closely linked together, and a sea of dark green forests covered the tall mountains. In the mountains and forests, there were many traces of demonic beast activity. From time to time, roars of beasts could be heard from the depths of the mountain range. Ji Tianqing even saw with his own eyes that there was a huge gray eagle circling in the sky above the mountains in the distance. The gray eagle demon beast seemed to have found its prey. It suddenly swooped down from the sky and drilled into the lush mountains. The next moment, the huge gray eagle flew back into the sky with a blood-stained black bear in its mouth. It quickly disappeared into the distance. Ji Tianqing had never seen such a shocking scene before. A vast and boundless aura surged toward him, making him deeply feel the vastness and mysteriousness of the ancient realm of the stars. At this moment, Yunyao let the spirit crane land on the peak of a mountain. After waiting for a while, Bai Wuchen rode his silver moon wolf to the top of the mountain and stopped in front of them. Junior Bai, use the mysterious pagoda to check again, Yunyao instructed calmly. Bai Wuchen nodded. He quickly took out the Arcanum Pagoda and activated the pagoda's array. Ji Tianqing also forced out another drop of blood essence and dripped it into the Xianji Pagoda. The octagonal top of the Xianji Pagoda spun rapidly, releasing a dazzling golden light with a hint of blood red. Not long after, the top of the octagonal pagoda gradually stopped spinning. One of the corners was blood red. It was still pointing in the northwest direction, but the direction was slightly off from before. Bai Wuchen carefully observed for a moment. He then used a secret technique to sense the aura of the mysterious pagoda. After sensing the specific result, he said to Yunyao, "Senior sister, we're closer to the target." The mysterious pagoda's reaction is also clearer. According to my judgment, Ji Ling's body should be in the northwest direction. It should be around 600 miles away from us. Yunyao nodded and said in a low voice, "All right, let's not delay any longer. We'll hurry over." After that, Yunyao and Ji Tianqing jumped onto the spirit crane's back and continued rushing toward the northwest. Bai Wuchen also rode on his silver moon wolf and rushed down the mountain peak like the wind. They hurried over the mountains and ridges. For the next 4 hours, the three of them did not stop. Yunyao and Ji Tianqing rode on the spirit crane and flew in the sky. Not only was the speed extremely fast, but it was also very safe. Even though the surrounding 800 miles were vast mountains with endless demonic beasts, they did not dare to attack the spirit crane. Bai Wuchen, on the other hand, was unlucky. While riding on his silver moon wolf, he was constantly attacked and chased by groups of demonic beasts. There were a few times when he was surrounded by a group of demonic beasts. He had to fight a bloody battle to break out of the encirclement. However, Bai Wuchen was indeed an elite genius of the Sky Pillar sect. Even though he fought a few times along the way, he was not injured. After 4 hours, Ji Tianqing and the other two also stopped rushing. The spirit crane landed on the peak of a 3,000-meter tall mountain. Yunyao and Ji Tianqing jumped off the spirit crane's back and stood in the forest on the mountain peak to wait. After a while, Bai Wuchen also rode on his silver moon wolf to the mountain peak and came before the two of them. Bai Wuchen's white robe was already stained with blood. It was a ghastly sight. Of course, this was the blood of demonic beasts. Yunyao looked at Bai Wuchen and said with a solemn expression, "Junior brother Bai, according to the results of your previous investigation, Ji Ling's corpse should be around here." Bai Wuchen nodded and took out the mysterious pagoda again. "Eldest senior sister, let me investigate again. This time, I should be able to determine the exact location of the target." After saying that, he activated the formation of the mysterious pagoda and began to investigate. Ji Tianqing frowned slightly. He cut his finger again and forced out a drop of blood essence, dripping it into the mysterious pagoda. The mysterious pagoda spun rapidly, emitting a dazzling golden light. It released an invisible mysterious energy that surged into the dark sky. After a while, the mysterious pagoda pointed out the direction. Bai Wuchen used a mysterious Dao secret technique to sense it and obtained the specific result. He looked ahead with a burning gaze and pointed at a towering dark green mountain peak. He said solemnly, "Eldest senior sister, Ji Ling's corpse is in that mountain. Also, I used the mysterious pagoda to sense the aura of the demons. There's more than one demon in that mountain. It's very likely that it's a temporary stronghold of the demons. Yunyao frowned slightly. After thinking for a while, she said, to avoid alerting the demons, we'll leave the spirit crane and the silver moon wolf here. We'll sneak into that mountain and search. The spirit crane and the silver moon wolf were too big. Moreover, the demons would sense their aura and easily expose their whereabouts. Leaving the two spirit beasts at the peak of the mountain was, of course, the wisest decision. Bai Wuchen had no objections. After that, Yunyao led Ji Tianqing and Bai Wuchen toward the mountain at lightning speed. The two mountains did not seem far apart, but there was a huge canyon between them that was dozens of miles away. After a full hour, the three of them entered the towering mountain. The three of them shuttled through the dense forest. Yunyao and Bai Wuchen used their spiritual senses to search for the aura of the demons. Ji Tianqing had not reached the mystic enlightening realm, so he did not have a spiritual sense. However, he was still observing the surroundings with his sharp eyes, hoping to find some clues. After shuttling through the forest for 15 minutes, he sensed a problem. The entire mountain was dead silent. There were no traces of demon beasts, nor were there any roars. This mountain that seemed to be full of vitality and lush with forest seemed to be emitting a cold aura of death. Today's 5th update has arrived. There's another update at 8 p.m. Please recommend it and add it to your collection. Chapter 151. When Ji Tianqing was locked up in the dark wind cave, he had fought with the black-robed woman of the demon clan. He knew how powerful the demon clan was. Therefore, when he was searching for clues in the forest, he was always vigilant and did not dare to let his guard down. Not long after, Bai Wuchen suddenly made a new discovery. He lowered his voice and said to Yunyao, eldest senior sister, according to the Xianji Pagoda's investigation, Ji Ling's body is very close to us. It's in this mountain. Yunyao frowned slightly and pondered for a moment. Then, she said in a low voice, Master once said that the demon clan is cruel and vicious. They are not tolerated by any race in the world. Therefore, they hide in the depths of the earth to survive until now. If that's the case, it's very likely that the demon clan is hiding in this mountain. Bai Wuchen nodded in agreement. Eldest senior sister, your analysis is very reasonable. We must find a way to enter the mountain. I guess the demon clan is hiding in the cave. Yunyao lowered her voice and said, look carefully. See if there's an entrance to the cave. Therefore, the three of them continued to search carefully in the forest, looking for a crack or a cave that could lead them into the mountain. About 2 hours later, the three of them searched around the mountain. Finally, Ji Tianqing found a dark cave in the forest at the foot of the mountain. The cave was about 2 meters wide and was covered by a cluster of extremely lush thorns. If one did not look closely, one would not be able to find it. Moreover, Ji Tianqing could clearly sense that there was a formation at the entrance of the seemingly ordinary cave. He waved at Yunyao and Bai Wuchen, who were not far away, and the two of them hurried over. After looking around for a while, Bai Wuchen pulled out his sword and slashed all the thorns at the entrance of the cave. The entrance of the cave was clearly exposed in front of the three of them. The light in the cave was dim, so they could not see the depth of the cave. Yunyao frowned and observed for a while. Then, she came to a conclusion. There's a defensive formation at the entrance of the cave. There's a strong aura of the demon clan. It should be one of the entrances to the demon clan's stronghold. Okay, let me try to break the formation. Bai Wuchen put away his sword and walked to the entrance of the cave. He waved his hands and released vital energy to try to break the formation. He spent a quarter of an hour and tried twice, but failed both times. Bai Wuchen was a little embarrassed, so he took out the Xianji Pagoda and used its power to break the formation. The Profound Secrets Treasure Pagoda was indeed miraculous, breaking the defensive array formation at the cave entrance very quickly. Shwa! When the formation collapsed, a black fog flashed before their eyes, and the scene at the entrance of the cave immediately changed. The originally pitch-black and rough cave had turned into an ancient black-brown stone door. This stone gate was 3 meters tall, and its frame was engraved with the characters and strange symbols of the demon race. It faintly exuded the chill of blood and death. After you go in, try to hide your aura as much as possible. Don't fight the demons head-on. Remember, our mission is only to retrieve Ji Ling's soul. Yin Yao instructed with a solemn expression. Then, she pushed open the sturdy and heavy stone door and entered the cave first. Ji Tianqing followed closely behind, while Bai Wuchen walked at the back with his sword in hand. The 3 of them slowed down, held their breaths, and tried their best to hide their aura. They didn't make a single sound. The cave was a little dark and damp. It meandered underground, and there were traces of man-made excavation on both sides of the cave walls. The 3 of them walked along the tunnel for about 100 steps, and the tunnel became as dark as ink. There wasn't a single ray of light. However, Yin Yao's strength was extraordinary. Even in such a dark environment, she could see the situation in front of her clearly. Not long after, there were some forks on both sides of the tunnel, and a few narrow passages extended out. Yin Yao ignored those passages and continued to follow the main path, going deeper into the cave. After about an hour, the 3 of them had walked for a total of 10 miles, and they were already more than 1,000 meters underground. At this moment, they finally reached the end of the tunnel. The 3 of them entered a huge and spacious cave. They stopped and hid in a dark corner, silently observing the situation in the cave. This cave was at least 100 meters tall and more than 1,000 meters wide. It wouldn't feel crowded even if it accommodated thousands of people. Dozens of gemstones were inlaid on the ceiling of the cave, emitting sparkling light. Although it was a little weak, it could still disperse part of the darkness. There were many huge stone sculptures in the middle of the cave. They weren't in the shape of humans, but of demons and gods with 3 heads and 6 arms. At first glance, those stone sculptures of demons and gods all had green faces and fangs under the dim light. They were very ferocious and terrifying. On the walls of the cave, there were many 3-meter-tall stone doors. Behind the doors should be passages or rooms. Each stone door was dark brown, and the door frame and lintel were engraved with demon words and symbols. They looked ancient, mysterious, and evil. The cave was dead silent. There was no movement or sound. It was as if it was shrouded in the aura of death, which made people feel depressed. Yin Yao had the celestial spirit sacred body bloodline, so she was very sensitive to the aura of other races. This kind of cave occupied by demons was filled with the aura of blood and death. It made her instinctively feel disgusted and resistant. The 3 of them hid in the dark corner for a while. Yin Yao used the power of her sacred body bloodline and sensed for a long time. Finally, she got the result. She looked at the 6 stone doors around the cave and whispered to Ji Tianqing and Bai Wuchen, "Among the 6 stone doors, the aura of demons is thicker in the 2 on the left and the 2 in the middle. There are also signs of activity. There might be demons hiding there. Only the 2 stone doors on the right have the aura of demons, but it is fixed. We have to start searching from those 2 doors." Bai Wuchen secretly sensed the Xianji pagoda and analyzed the result. He nodded in agreement and said, "Senior sister is right. I suggest we start searching from the right." Then, the 3 of them whispered to each other and discussed a simple plan. Yin Yao and Ji Tianqing hid in the dark corner and watched for any changes. They supported Bai Wuchen. Bai Wuchen quietly went to the stone door on the far right and silently cracked the array on the door. He had good attainments in array formation. With the help of the Xianji pagoda, he quickly cracked the defensive array on the stone door. He pushed open the heavy stone door and went into the passage behind it to investigate for a while. Then, he gestured for Yin Yao and Ji Tianqing to follow him. The 3 of them walked to the end of the passage behind the door and saw a spacious hall. There were piles of bones in the dark hall. Thousands of grayish-white bones were piled up into a small hill. Most of the bones had been stored for many years. They had long rotted and become a pile of bones. At the edge of the white bone hill, there was a relatively intact corpse that had not completely rotted yet, although the corpse was broken and emitted a strong stench. However, Ji Tianqing, Yun Yao, and the other two immediately recognized him. That corpse was Ji Ling's. Sixth update, please join the bookshelf and vote a few recommendation votes. Thank you everyone. Chapter 152. A few days ago, when Ji Ling was still alive, he looked like a refined and handsome young man. But who would have thought that a few days later, he would become a rotting corpse wrapped in rags? No one could look at him directly. Not only that, but his corpse was also thrown into the White Bone Mountain by the demons. After a few years, he would also decay like the other skeletons and become a pile of gray bones. Yun Yao frowned. She couldn't stand the pungent smell in the hall. She quickly held her breath and didn't dare to speak. Seeing this, Bai Wuchen naturally had to muster up his courage and step forward. He resisted the urge to vomit and walked to Ji Ling's corpse. He turned his head away, not daring to look at Ji Ling's corpse. He slowly stretched out his trembling hand and pressed it on Ji Ling's head. He used a secret technique to examine Ji Ling's soul. During this time, he also held his breath and didn't dare to inhale. His face was pale. When he got the results of his investigation, he finally showed a relieved expression and quickly ran away from Ji Ling's body. He rushed back to Yun Yao and didn't dare to speak. He quickly nodded at Yun Yao. Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing understood what he meant. Ji Ling's soul had been extracted. Hence, the three of them quickly walked out of the hall with the foul air and out of the dark brown stone door. Next, the three of them searched the second stone door. Just like before, Bai Wuchen was responsible for breaking the formation on the stone door. Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing hid in a dark corner and secretly monitored their surroundings. Not long after, Bai Wuchen used the power of the mysterious pagoda to successfully break the formation on the second stone door. He slowly pushed open the heavy stone door and went in to investigate for a while. Then, he returned to the door and waved at Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao. The two of them quickly followed Bai Wuchen through the stone door. Behind the stone door was a dark passage. The walls were carved with strange patterns. Most of them were ghosts and monsters. It was hair-raising. There was a secret chamber at the end of the passageway. Bai Wuchen easily broke the array on the stone door and pushed it open. As soon as the stone door opened a crack, a weak light leaked out, and there were some weak shouts. Yun Yao and Bai Wuchen's expressions changed. They subconsciously gripped their swords, and their true essence surged in their bodies. They were ready to launch a thunderous attack at any time. Obviously, when the two of them saw the light in the secret room and heard the faint sounds, they thought that there were demons in the secret room. However, when the stone door opened, the expected demons did not appear. The scene in the secret room was also clearly presented before the three of them. In this secret room with a radius of 10 meters, the surrounding walls were carved with green-faced and fanged ghost god statues. There was an ancient stone lamp in each of the four corners of the room, which emitted a weak light under the support of the array. Dozens of silver chains hung from the roof, and each chain was tied to a palm-sized crystal ball. Other than that, there was nothing else in the secret chamber. Yun Yao, Ji Tianqing, and Bai Wuchen entered the secret chamber and looked around curiously. The three of them were puzzled. There was no one in the secret chamber, so why did they hear the shouts just now? Ji Tianqing glanced at the surrounding walls, and his eyes fell on the dozens of crystal balls. He vaguely saw that there was a cloud of gray fog in each of the transparent crystal balls, which was constantly rolling. He subconsciously walked to the side of a crystal ball and observed it closely. Suddenly, the gray fog in the crystal ball condensed into a human figure, which turned into a black-robed old man half the size of a palm. He roared at him crazily, "Let me out! Let me out quickly!" Although the sudden shout was very weak, it was clearly reflected in the minds of Ji Tianqing and the other two. Ji Tianqing was immediately shocked. He could not help but take a step back, and his eyes were fixed on the black-robed old man in the crystal ball. Then, the gray fog in the nearby crystal balls condensed into all kinds of people, who were shouting angrily and excitedly. "Let me out. That's great. Someone is here. Save me quickly. This old man has been imprisoned for many years. Young hero, please save me and let this old man reincarnate." In the blink of an eye, at least 20 of the gray fog in the crystal balls had turned into human figures of men, women, and children. Their voices were sorrowful and mournful as they begged. Ji Tianqing finally understood what was going on and vaguely guessed what was going on. He looked at Yunyao beside him and asked seriously, "Senior sister, the gray fog in these crystal balls should be the souls extracted by the devil clan, right?" "Yes." Yunyao nodded. Her face was indifferent, but there was a faint anger in her eyes. "I didn't expect the devil clan to be so cruel and vicious. They won't even let the dead go. Even if the people are dead, they still extract their souls and seal them in these magical artifacts. The screams we heard just now weren't real voices. They were the voices of these souls. We can only hear them when we are close to them." Bai Wuchen nodded and said indignantly, "It is said that after a person dies, his soul will stay in the corpse for 7 days. After 7 days, he will be reincarnated. The cruel and vicious devil clan. After killing someone, they extract their souls and seal them in evil magical artifacts within 7 days. In this way, their souls will never be able to be reincarnated. I've checked just now. The souls sealed in these evil artifacts are all experts of the human race. Many of them are even from the big sects in the ancient realm of the stars." Yunyao frowned and said coldly, "No wonder I have heard of strange things happening in other sects in the past 100 years. Experts have mysteriously disappeared. No one knows if they are alive or dead. It turns out that those experts were killed by the devil clan and their souls were sealed in here." Ji Tianqing listened to the conversation between the two and gained a deeper understanding of the devil clan's cruelty and viciousness. He frowned and looked at the more than 30 crystal balls in the secret room. His sharp eyes searched for Ji Ling's soul. He slowly walked to the center of the secret room and looked at each crystal ball one by one. Finally, he stopped when he saw the 28th crystal ball. A gray fog was rolling in this crystal ball. When it heard the movement in the secret room, it condensed into a human figure. It was a small person half the size of a palm. He looked gentle and thin and wore a green robe. It was Ji Ling's appearance. When Ji Tianqing found him, he also saw Ji Tianqing. Ji Ling's face twisted in anger and he let out a soul roar. "Ji Tianqing! Why is it you, bastard? What are you doing here?" Ji Tianqing looked at Ji Ling's soul. Seeing that his face was still filled with killing intent and hatred, he couldn't help but smile. "I am here to find you and send you to reincarnate." Chapter 153. Under normal circumstances, the words "I'll send you to reincarnate" would be taken as an insult. However, given Ji Ling's current situation, Ji Tianqing's actions were undoubtedly helping and saving him. However, Ji Ling did not appreciate it. Instead, he became even more furious. He glared at Ji Tianqing and roared with a distorted face, "Ji Tianqing! You damned beast! Bastard! I clearly have the Xianjian bloodline, why can't I activate the array? If I could successfully activate the array, I would have become the sect master's personal disciple. How could I have fallen to such a state?" Ji Tianqing looked at him calmly and his lips curled into a disdainful sneer. "The Xianjian bloodline was originally mine. You despicable and shameless bandit, even if you used crafty tricks to steal my Xianjian bloodline, your bloodline is not pure and will definitely be very thin. Of course, it's useless." Ji Ling was not willing to listen to his explanation and roared again, "It's all because of you bastard that I'm in such a miserable state. When I die, my soul will be extracted by the demons and sealed here. We both come from the Clear Sky Kingdom. You're just a small descendant of the Ji family and I'm a noble prince. Why did it become like this? I can't accept this. If you kill me, I won't let you go even if I become a ghost. Ji Tianqing's sneer deepened and he said indifferently, if we didn't come to save you, you wouldn't even have the chance to become a ghost. Originally, the souls in the crystal balls around Ji Ling were all in deep slumber. However, after hearing the conversation between him and Ji Tianqing, a ball of silent gray fog in the corner of an ancient crystal ball suddenly turned into the appearance of a blue-robed old man. The blue-robed old man did not make a sound but listened carefully to the conversation between Ji Tianqing and Ji Ling. When he heard the words Xianjian bloodline, his expression changed. When he heard the words Qingyun kingdom and a Ji clan, his expression changed drastically. His eyes shone brightly as if he was agitated. However, he didn't send out a soul message. He just stayed inside the crystal ball and observed Ji Tianqing silently. At the same time, Yin Yao and Bai Wuchen came to Ji Tianqing's side and stared at the crystal ball that Ji Ling was in. Ji Ling was still roaring and cursing in the crystal ball. Yin Yao and Bai Wuchen ignored him. They were discussing how to save him in a low voice. Eldest senior sister, these silver chains are made of magic silver. They are connected to the crystal ball and are artifacts with special magic power. It looks like I have to break the spell formation and magic on the chains before I can take the crystal ball away. Junior brother Bai, can you break the magic silver chains array? There shouldn't be a problem. Let me try. After the discussion, Bai Wuchen took out the Xuanji pagoda and used his ultimate skill to break the magic silver chains array formation. About 100 breaths later, the magic silver chains array formation was broken. The special magic power dissipated and the chain became dim. Yin Yao took out her treasured sword and cut off the silver chains with a swish. Then, she held the crystal ball that contained Ji Ling's soul in her palm. Bai Wuchen was overjoyed. He quickly said, eldest senior sister, we got it. Let's leave this place and report back to the sect. However, before Yin Yao could answer, the souls sealed in the crystal balls around them started to cry and beg. Young hero, please save us. Young hero, are you a disciple of the Sky Pillar sect? I'm an elder of the Six Harmony sect. I've been to your sect a few times. Young heroes, please do me a favor. I'm a deacon of the Thousand Autumns sect. I'm good friends with Deacon Li of your sect. Young hero, please help us. Please let us be reincarnated. If there's a next life, I'll repay you even if I have to be a cow or a horse. The pleading voices of men, women, old, and young were imprinted in the minds of Yin Yao, Bai Wuchen, making them feel sad and unbearable. Bai Wuchen didn't want to complicate matters. He just wanted to escape from the Devil Clan's stronghold as soon as possible and report back to the sect leader of the Sky Pillar sect. However, Yin Yao couldn't bear it. After hesitating for a while, she said in a deep voice, Junior brother Bai, the souls imprisoned here are all from my clan. They're innocent people. Judging from the appearance of those crystal balls, many of their souls have been sealed for at least hundreds of years. Let's just let them go and do good deeds. Bai Wuchen didn't want Yin Yao to look down on him. After thinking for a while, he nodded and said, all right. Since eldest senior sister is so kind, I'll do as you say. Therefore, he used the power of the Xianji pagoda to perform his array Dao's secret art to break the array on the crystal balls. Every time the array on a crystal ball was broken, Yin Yao would slash the crystal ball with her sword and release the imprisoned souls. Those souls were so excited that they thanked the three of them with tears of gratitude. Then, they dissipated between heaven and earth and went to be reincarnated. Unknowingly, an hour had passed. 38 of the 39 crystal balls had already been shattered by Yin Yao. There was still the last crystal ball in the corner of the secret room. Bai Wuchen was controlling the Xianji pagoda to break the array on the crystal ball. As long as the soul in the crystal ball was saved, the mission would be completed and the merit would be complete. However, no one expected that at this moment, a series of hurried footsteps could be heard from outside the secret room. Yin Yao and Ji Tianqing were shocked and turned to look at the door of the secret room. The next moment, a 2-meter-tall devil clan man with a sturdy body and dark purple skin appeared at the door. This man only wore an apron made of animal skin and a waistcoat made of animal skin. His whole body was covered with thick hair, and his neck and arms were covered with tattoos. He looked extremely ferocious. When he saw Ji Tianqing and the other two in the secret room, he let out a furious roar and charged toward them with his heavy sword. The black heavy sword in his hand was as wide as a bench. It was shining with a 2-meter-long purple sword radiance. With the power to destroy everything, it swept toward Yin Yao and Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing could instantly tell that this devil clan man's strength had reached the mystic enlightening realm. At this moment, Yin Yao's pretty face turned cold. A murderous look flashed in her eyes as she slashed out 3 sword radiances with her sword. Bam! 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 In the muffled sound, the sword radiance pierced through the devil clan man's chest. Immediately, purple blood spurted out and he was sent flying out of the secret room. However, as soon as the male demon fell, 2 equally burly and valiant demons rushed into the secret room with black sabers in their hands. We've been discovered. Let's go. Yin Yao's expression changed immediately. She took the initiative to attack the 2 devils and shouted at Bai Wuchen. Bai Wuchen was only halfway through breaking the array on the last crystal ball. Seeing this, he could only stop. He put away the Xianji pagoda and rushed to the secret room's door with his sword. Chapter 154. Yin Yao slashed out a few sword radiances and killed 2 demons in an instant. The corpses of the 2 demons fell into a pool of blood and blocked the entrance of the secret chamber. Ji Tianqing kicked the 2 corpses away and rushed out of the secret chamber with Yin Yao. However, the demons in the stronghold were alarmed. Angry shouts could be heard from the cave. When Yin Yao, Ji Tianqing, and the other 2 rushed out of the stone door and entered the spacious cave, more than a dozen demons rushed over with murderous auras and surrounded the 3 of them. These demon clan guards were all in the metaphysical realm. They were burly like black bears, exuding a savage and cruel aura of slaughter. Their weapons were also different from those of the human race. They were all heavy weapons, and only warriors with amazing arm strength could use them. Of course, this kind of heavy weapon used by the devil race guards, the lethality was also very strong. For a warrior in the true energy realm like Ji Tianqing, he would be chopped into meat paste with just 1 slash. There were a total of 16 demon guards. After surrounding the 3 of them, they roared angrily and shouted in the demon language. Soon, they waved their sabers and broadswords, slashing out purple sword radiances and saber radiances. They surrounded the 3 of them. Yin Yao shouted with a serious face, "Don't fight. Break out of the encirclement and leave this place as soon as possible." Bai Wuchen gripped his sword tightly and shouted with a cold face, "Understood." The next moment, a fierce battle broke out. More than a dozen powerful sword radiances and saber radiances slashed at the vital parts of the 3 of them. The sword radiances and saber radiances caused a gust of wind in the spacious cave. Yin Yao and Bai Wuchen were obviously much stronger than these demon guards. The 2 of them waved their swords with all their might, slashing out dazzling sword radiances and injuring or killing the surrounding demon guards. No one could stop them. However, there were too many demon guards and they were cruel and bloodthirsty. They were not afraid of death. Even though the 2 of them injured 6 demons and killed 4 more, they could not break out of the encirclement in a short time. Ji Tianqing was in a much more dangerous situation. He did not dare to fight the demon guards head-on like Yin Yao and Bai Wuchen. He could only hold the black dragon's sword tightly and retreat to avoid the fierce attacks of the demon guards. He was waiting for an opportunity to counterattack. At this moment, a demon guard slashed at him with his saber. He narrowly dodged the attack. Yin Yao hurriedly came to help him break free. She stabbed the demon guard with her sword and forced him to retreat. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ji Tianqing decisively unsheathed his sword and slashed at the demon guard with all his strength. Swish! The black dragon sword turned into a snow-white sword radiance and slashed the demon guard's head. With a kacha sound, the demon guard was sliced in half by the black dragon sword, dying without a complete corpse. Dark purple blood spurted out and splattered on the ground. Immediately, the cave was filled with the thick smell of blood. The dazzling snow-white sword radiance illuminated the dark cave. It also clearly reflected the shock on Bai Wuchen's face. Bai Wuchen could not believe that Ji Tianqing, who was only in the true energy realm, had the courage to counterattack and kill a mystic comprehending realm demon guard with a single slash. This was too unbelievable. Yin Yao seemed to have expected this outcome. She was not surprised. Seeing Bai Wuchen in a daze, she shouted, "Junior brother Bai, break out of the encirclement." Only then did Bai Wuchen come to his senses. He quickly used his sword Dao technique. He stabbed out 36 sword radiances and turned 2 demon guards who were attacking him into sieves. Yin Yao also killed 2 demon guards with a swing of her sword. She also forced the surviving demon guards to retreat. The 3 of them broke out of the encirclement and rushed to the entrance. As long as they reached the entrance at the edge of the cave, they could use their speed advantage to shake off the demon guard's pursuit and successfully escape from the cave. However, just as the 3 of them reached the entrance, more than 10 demon guards rushed out from the left and right sides. These demon guards were enraged by the smell of blood in the cave. They knew that they were no match for Yun Yao and Bai Wuchen. However, they still charged forward recklessly. Swoosh! 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 More than a dozen broadswords and sabers emitted saber light and sword light, fiercely slashing towards Ji Yunyao and Ji Tianqing. The 3 of them had no choice but to counterattack again. Yunyao was at the front, killing the demon guards who were blocking her way. Bai Wuchen brought up the rear, brandishing his sword and unleashing his exquisite swordsmanship, killing 1 demon guard after another. Ji Tianqing was the weakest. He was protected in the middle by the 2 of them. He followed Yun Yao and broke out of the encirclement. However, in fact, he did not need Yun Yao and Bai Wuchen's protection. He could protect himself in this fierce battle. With his exquisite shadowless steps, he was able to dodge the attacks of the demon guards at an extremely fast speed. While he was dodging the attacks, he observed the situation of the battle with his sharp eyes, looking for a chance to counterattack. Once he found a good opportunity, he would attack decisively. He would use his full strength to kill a demon guard in an instant. The battle only lasted for 100 breaths. Ji Tianqing killed 3 demon guards in succession. Bai Wuchen was even more shocked. Yin Yao and Bai Wuchen also killed 8 demon guards. They severely injured the remaining few and forced them to retreat. The 3 of them finally broke out of the encirclement. They rushed into the entrance as they wished and ran into the tunnel they came from. Although the tunnel was dark, Yun Yao was leading the way. Her sharp eyes could see clearly within a 50-meter radius. The 3 of them ran at an extremely fast speed. In just a few minutes, they rushed out of the dark tunnel. Swoosh! 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 The 3 of them finally rushed out of the dark tunnel and returned to the forest at the foot of the mountain. It was already evening, and the forest was dimly lit. However, when the 3 of them saw the blue sky and the golden setting sun, they felt as if they had seen the light of day again. Phew! Bai Wuchen exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. He waved his sleeve to wipe off the sweat on his forehead. He looked relieved and said, "We've finally escaped. Eldest senior sister, let's leave as soon as possible and report back," he said instinctively and was about to put away his sword. However, Yin Yao did not answer him. Even Ji Tianqing did not make a sound. Bai Wuchen looked up and saw that Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing, who were walking in front of him, had stopped. In the forest 100 steps in front of them stood 2 tall and sturdy figures in black robes. The black-robed figure on the left was a woman. She was tall and voluptuous. However, her blood-red eyes under the cloak were emitting a terrifying cold light and murderous intent. The figure on the right was the demon tribe's high priest. His purple hair was tied into dozens of long braids. He was barefooted and exuded a bloody aura. Bai Wuchen's expression changed drastically when he saw the two demon powerhouses. A cold light flashed in his eyes. He never would have thought that he would be stopped by two devil race powerhouses in the blink of an eye after escaping from death. Chapter 155. In this situation, Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing didn't even need to communicate. They knew what to do. The only thing they could do was try their best to break through the encirclement. After all, the high priest of the demon race had infiltrated the Sky Pillar sect several times in the past 100 years. Even the many elders in the sect couldn't do anything to him. Although Yun Yao and Bai Wuchen were the elites in the sect, they were only juniors. How could they defeat the high priest of the demon race? At the same time, the high priest and the blood moon infanta moved at the same time. They approached the three of them with a murderous aura. Shoo. The soft sound of their footsteps on the grass was like the tolling of the bell of death. It made one's heart tighten. Finally, Yun Yao pulled out her sword and rushed towards the high priestess with a cold expression. She waved her sword and slashed out 49 sword lights. Swish. 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 Every sword gleam was 2 meters long. 49 sword gleams were released at the same time and enveloped the high priest instantly. This was Yun Yao's ultimate sword technique. She clearly used all her strength and didn't hold back at all. The high priest didn't expect her to take the initiative to attack. A mocking sneer appeared in his eyes. He instantly removed the pitch-black whip from his waist. It was suffused with the aura of death. He waved the whip and released a black shadow to block the sword gleams. Bam! 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 Amidst a series of muffled sounds, Yun Yao's sword lights collapsed one after another, turning into bits and pieces that dissipated. The high priestess easily blocked her attack and remained unscathed. Not only that, the high priest grinned and sneered silently. He waved the black snake-like whip again and swept it at Yun Yao. Swish. Swish. The black snake-like whip shot out hundreds of black cold stars and enveloped Yun Yao from head to toe. Bai Wuchen's expression changed drastically. His eyes were filled with worry. He drew his sword and rushed forward without hesitation to help Yun Yao block the attack. The two of them waved their swords at the same time. Cold sword gleams filled the sky and blocked the hundreds of black cold stars. Ding ding dang dang dang. A burst of crisp sounds burst out, and both of them were shaken to the point that they retreated 10 steps back. Their complexions were pale, and beads of sweat appeared on their foreheads. Hee. Since you're here, why don't you stay? The high priest sneered and waved his black snake whip again, attacking Yun Yao and Bai Wuchen. The two of them could only fight back with all their might. They unleashed their ultimate sword techniques and fought against the high priest. The three of them were all martial Dao experts. Their battle was exceptionally intense. The speed at which they moved and dodged was so fast that no one could see them clearly. Ji Tianqing could only see that a radius of 10 meters had been enveloped by the sword light, like a ball of cold light radiating in all directions. The ball of light was still moving, rushing into the depths of the forest. Wherever it passed, the grass and trees were crushed into pieces, splashing in all directions. Even a Tongxian realm expert wasn't qualified to interfere in a battle of this level. At this moment, the blood moon infanta turned into a black fog, crossed a distance of 100 steps, and appeared in front of Ji Tianqing. She stared at Ji Tianqing coldly. She raised her palms in her sleeves and used 2 huge bloody hands to grab Ji Tianqing's head. Damn demon tribe! Ji Tianqing cursed in his heart. His expression became cold, and his eyes became serious. It's this vicious demoness again. It's this trick again. When he was locked in the narrow stone room in the dark wind cave, he had nowhere to hide. He was almost killed by the Blood Moon Infanta. Today, he fought with the Blood Moon Infanta again, but this time, they were in the forest at the foot of the mountain. The terrain here was more spacious. Moreover, his strength had improved, and he had the black dragon sword in his hand. This time, Ji Tianqing finally had the ability to save his life. "Damn Demonis, take my sword!" Ji Tianqing shouted angrily as he drew out his sword and slashed at the Blood Moon Infanta. Swish! The black dragon sword turned into a 3-meter-long snow-white sword radiance, which carried an overbearing and violent power, and slashed at the Blood Moon Infanta fiercely. The Blood Moon Infanta's expression changed immediately. She didn't dare to use her bloody hands to take the sword head-on, and she quickly turned into a black fog and disappeared. "Ha, ha, worm of the human tribe, you are lucky that I didn't kill you last time. Today, you will definitely die." When she finished her words, she appeared behind Ji Tianqing out of thin air, and she easily dodged the black dragon sword's attack. Boom! The black dragon sword slashed at the forest, and a 5-meter-long ditch appeared on the ground. Countless pieces of soil and grass splashed out, and the ground was shaking. However, the Blood Moon Infanta had attacked him from behind, and she waved her bloody hands fiercely toward his back and head. At this critical moment, Ji Tianqing sensed the imminent danger of death, and his whole body became tense. He didn't have time to turn around, and he used the shadowless step to escape with all his might. However, he was one step too slow, and his back was hit by the bloody hands with a bang. Puff! He immediately spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body was sent flying, and he crashed into the forest 10 meters away. Fortunately, he dodged in time, and he only suffered 60% of the power of the bloody hands. The ice hornless armor he was wearing had also blocked most of the power for him, which had saved his life. Only his internal organs had been injured. Swish! When he just got up from the ground, the Blood Moon Infanta rushed toward him again, and she raised her bloody hands to slap him fiercely. At this critical moment, Ji Tianqing could only use his trump card. Wind and Thunder Strike. He activated 2 half-meter-long sword chi, and used all his strength to slash at the Blood Moon Infanta. The 2 sword chi lit up with a dazzling golden light, and they rolled up a violent hurricane, and turned into a half-meter-long lightning bolt, which struck down with a loud bang. Boom! The violent lightning bolt shattered the Blood Moon Infanta's bloody hands on the spot. She was forced back 3 steps, and her eyes were filled with astonishment. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ji Tianqing didn't want to continue the fight, and he used the shadowless step to escape without hesitation. Unfortunately, the gap between his strength and the Blood Moon Infanta's was too big, and there was at least a gap of 1 realm between them. The Blood Moon Infanta came to herself, and her body flashed, and she caught up with him. Before he could react, the Blood Moon Infanta slapped his back, and he was sent flying. Boom! Ji Tianqing spat out a mouthful of blood again, and he fell into the forest 10 meters away. This time, his injuries were worse, and his internal organs were even more injured. Blood kept dripping from the corners of his mouth, and his internal organs were in severe pain, as if they were cut by knives. He couldn't use any genuine vitality. However, he was still conscious, and he could clearly feel the piercing pain, and his whole body was drenched in cold sweat. The Blood Moon Infanta walked over, and looked at him with disdain. She extended 2 fingers, and quickly tapped his chest and abdomen 4 times. Immediately, Ji Tianqing's acupoints were sealed, and his body was lying stiffly on the grass, and he couldn't move anymore. Besides being able to speak, he couldn't do anything else, and he had completely lost control of his body. Obviously, his acupoints were sealed by the Blood Moon Infanta. The Blood Moon Infanta didn't kill him, and she knocked him out with 1 palm. She then carried him on her shoulder, and walked into the cave. Chapter 156. Yin Yao and Bai Wuchen fought the high priest with all their might for hundreds of moves. 15 minutes later, the the three of them went from the entrance of the demon cave to the depths of the forest. The battlefield had shifted nearly 1,000 meters away. Wherever the three of them went, they left behind a 1,000-meter-long ditch. The grass and trees nearby were all twisted into pieces. Yun Yao and Bai Wuchen were the elite geniuses of the Sky Pillar sect and had extraordinary strength. However, the high priest of the demon clan was a powerhouse that gave the elders a headache. How could the two of them be a match for him? After hundreds of moves, Yun Yao and Bai Wuchen had suffered serious injuries. Their bodies were covered with crisscrossing wounds. Blood gushed out and dyed their white robes red. It was a ghastly sight. Not only that, the two of them had used up a lot of their true essence. Their faces were very pale, and their combat power had weakened rapidly. They only had 50% of their strength left. However, the high priest was unscathed. His attacks were still violent and strange. It seemed that he had an endless supply of true essence. He stepped on the ground barefoot and waved the black snake whip in his hands. He shot out black sword chi that covered the sky and attacked Yun Yao and Bai Wuchen respectively. The two of them were forced to retreat. They could only block with their swords. After a series of clanking sounds, Yun Yao and Bai Wuchen were sent flying and fell into the forest. The high priest ignored Bai Wuchen and chased after Yun Yao with a sneer on his face. He. Chick, you must be Yun Yao, the chief disciple of the Sky Pillar sect, right? He, the #1 genius of the Tianshan region and the future successor of the sect master. If I capture you, the Sky Pillar sect will exchange some important treasures with me, right? As he spoke, he waved the black snake whip again and shot out hundreds of black cold stars toward Yun Yao. Although Yun Yao's injuries were very serious, she was surrounded by hundreds of cold stars and had nowhere to run. However, she still refused to give up. She shouted angrily with a cold face, "You damn demon! Even if I die here, I will never let the sect be threatened by you." With an angry roar, she used the last of her strength to slash out 49 sword rays. Ding ding dang dang dang. The sword aura collided with the many black cold stars, producing a crisp sound of collision. A violent and raging force burst forth, creating a hurricane in the forest. However, she was already an arrow at the end of its flight and her attack power was limited. She could not block the high priestess attack at all. The 49 sword auras were all destroyed, but more than half of the black cold stars were still flying towards her. She was about to be turned into a sieve by the dense rain of black cold stars. She would either be seriously injured and unconscious, or be killed on the spot. At this critical moment, a dazzling golden light suddenly flashed from the side, followed by a voice full of worry. "Eldest senior sister, be careful." Without a doubt, the person who rushed over to save her was Bai Wuchen. Although Bai Wuchen was severely injured, he still used the Arcanum Treasure Pagoda. Under his control, the Xianji Pagoda grew to the height of a person. It shone with a dazzling golden light that enveloped him. Swoosh! With the protection of the Arcanum Treasure Pagoda, he rushed to Yun Yao in an instant and helped Yun Yao block dozens of black cold stars. Bam, 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 bam. Dozens of black cold stars hit the Arcanum Treasure Pagoda, causing the golden light shield to tremble and ripple. However, the golden light shield was not damaged. It actually blocked the high priestess attack. "Eldest senior sister, let's go." In the next moment, Bai Wuchen rushed to Yun Yao's side. The Arcanum Treasure Pagoda's golden light shield also enveloped her. Before the high priestess could react, Bai Wuchen used a secret technique to control the Arcanum Treasure Pagoda and flew out of the forest. The golden light shield protected him and Yun Yao as they flew high into the sky. Like a shooting star, they streaked across the sky and flew into the distance. The Arcanum Treasure Pagoda's speed was extremely fast. In just a few breaths, it disappeared into the horizon. The high priestess did not chase after them. After all, he had not reached ethereal cultivation. He could not form wings with his ethereal force to fly in the sky. He stood in the forest and looked up at the sky. When he saw the Arcanum treasure pagoda carrying Yunyao and Bai Wuchen away, his eyes flashed with hatred. Damn it! I can't believe I let them escape. The next time I see them, I'll definitely kill you. The high priestess muttered in a cold voice. Then, she put away the black snake whip and walked toward the entrance of the demon cave. With the Arcanum treasure pagoda protecting Yunyao and Bai Wuchen, they flew across the dark sky and landed on a mountain peak. In the forest on the mountain peak, a gigantic spirit crane and a ferocious silver moon wolf were crouching. Swoosh! In a flash of golden light, the two of them landed on the grassland on the mountain peak. Bai Wuchen's face was pale. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Although the Arcanum treasure pagoda was a powerful treasure, it consumed a lot of his spiritual consciousness and ethereal force to control it. He quickly put away the Arcanum treasure pagoda and leaned against a tree to catch his breath. He took out a pill and put it into his mouth to recover his strength. Yunyao also didn't care about treating the injuries on her body. After taking a healing pill, she looked around worriedly. Where's junior brother Tianqing? Why didn't he escape? Bai Wuchen was startled. He looked around, but he didn't see Ji Tianqing anywhere. He frowned and tried to recall. Then, he said in a low voice, I remember now. When we were fighting with the high priestess, Ji Tianqing seemed to be fighting with the demonic woman. With his strength, there's no way he can defeat the demonic woman. Now, he must have been killed by the demonic woman. Even if he's not dead, he must have been captured. Upon hearing this, Yunyao frowned. Her eyes were filled with worry and anxiety. No. We came here to carry out the mission together. We have to go back together. We can't leave him behind. We have to go back and save him. As she spoke, Yunyao picked up her sword and was about to go down the mountain to save Ji Tianqing. Bai Wuchen pulled her back and said seriously, eldest senior sister, don't be rash. You have personally experienced how powerful the high priest of the demon race is. We used the power of the Arcanum treasure pagoda to escape from her clutches. If you go back to save Ji Tianqing now, won't you be walking right into a trap? Seeing that Yunyao was silent, he said in a low voice, eldest senior sister, you know how important this mission is to our sect. We have to put the mission first. Ji Tianqing is most likely dead now. What's the point of you going back? Let's get out of here quickly and report back to the sect. As he said this, he thought to himself, eldest senior sister and I are both elite geniuses in the sect. No matter who dies, it'll be a big loss to the sect. Ji Tianqing is just an outer disciple. If he dies, so be it. He's not worth our lives to save. However, Yunyao took out the crystal ball containing Ji Ling's soul from her jade ring and handed it to Bai Wuchen. Junior brother Bai, take Ji Ling's soul and report back to the sect leader immediately. I'll go save junior brother Tianqing alone. Seeing that Bai Wuchen was frowning and wanted to persuade her again, she continued, Junior brother Bai, you don't have to persuade me anymore. I've made up my mind. Give me the Arcanum treasure pagoda. I'll go save him. Then, without waiting for Bai Wuchen's agreement, she snatched the pagoda from him and rushed to the entrance of the devil's cave. Bai Wuchen watched her figure disappear into the forest. His face was very ugly, and his eyes flashed with hatred. Damn Ji Tianqing. What did you do to deserve eldest senior sister sacrificing herself to save you? After stopping for a while, he put away the crystal ball and rode back to the Sky Pillar sect on his silver moon wolf. Chapter 157. After an unknown amount of time, Ji Tianqing slowly woke up. He slowly opened his eyes and saw that he was lying on the cold floor. It was a dimly lit secret room filled with the stench of blood and corruption. Using the dim light from the stone lamp in the corner, he looked around and saw his surroundings clearly. He was alone in the secret room and had set up a powerful array. The sharp pain from his internal organs made his breathing painful. There were still traces of blood in his nose and mouth, and there was a strong smell of blood. He wanted to heal himself, but several of his meridians were sealed and he could not use his vital core. Although he could move freely, his vital core was sealed and he could not break the array in the secret room. It was impossible for him to escape. He sat on the cold floor and frowned. The despicable demoness did not kill me but locked me in this secret room? What is she trying to do? After thinking for a while, he still could not figure out the demoness' intention. He could not guess what would happen next and what his fate would be. Ji Tianxing calmed down and silently observed the secret room. He also listened to the sounds outside. However, there was nothing in the secret chamber. Nothing could be seen, and the outside of the secret chamber was also silent. In the darkness and silence, Ji Tianxing was unusually calm as he pondered silently. I don't know what time it is. Have Yin Yao and Bai Wuchen escaped? They are both the elite geniuses of our sect. They should be fine, right? No, I can't just sit here and wait for death. I have to find a way to escape. To escape from the secret room, he had to break the seal on his meridians and recover his vital core and strength. Then, he had to break the array in the secret room. However, he was stumped at the first stage. The demoness used a secret technique to seal his meridians so that he could not use his vital core. He thought hard for a long time and tried many ways to break the seal, but he could not do it. The demoness had sealed his meridians with a very strong power. Even a mystic comprehending realm expert could not break it. Ji Tianxing could only place his hopes on the sword embryo and pray that it could create a miracle. He tried to activate the sword chi, and after a few tries, he finally managed to activate two toothpick-like sword chi. Although his acupoints were sealed and his true essence could not flow through his meridians and acupoints, he was still able to control his true essence. However, the two streaks of sword chi were able to move slowly towards the sealed acupoints. Next, Ji Tianxing began to manipulate the two sword chis, carefully attacking the sealed acupoints. Although this process was very painful, it was as if he was holding a knife and continuously cutting his own flesh. However, his strength was too low and he could not directly unseal his acupoints. This was the only way. Unknowingly, an hour had passed. Ji Tianxing endured a great deal of pain and finally unlocked the first acupoint. Great! My sword chi can indeed unseal acupoints. His spirits were lifted, and he continued to manipulate the sword chi to attack the second sealed aperture. Another hour passed, and the second acupoint was unlocked. Ji Tianxing's mind was greatly exhausted, and the great pain made him break out in a cold sweat. However, he did not stop and started to unseal the third and fourth acupoints. Soon, 4 hours had passed. The 4 acupoints that were sealed by the demoness had finally been unlocked. When all the acupoints were unlocked, the true core energy in Ji Tianxing's body started to flow again, just like a blocked pipe being unblocked. He stood up and moved his sore and numb body to check his injuries. He took out an elixir from his 100 treasures brocade pouch and consumed it. He circulated his chi to refine the elixir and silently treated his injuries. Then, he carefully observed the array in the secret room, trying to break the array. However, at this moment, he suddenly caught a glimpse of a wisp of gray fog floating in the corner of the secret room. The secret room was dimly lit, so he could not see clearly. Therefore, he did not pay much attention to it and continued to observe the array. However, a weak old man's voice suddenly rang out, clearly imprinted in his mind. "Boy, are you a descendant of the Ji family?" Ji Tianxing was stunned. He turned his head to look at the gray fog in the corner. He walked closer to take a look and found that the gray fog was the same as the souls sealed in the crystal ball. Swoosh! The gray fog rolled a few times and immediately turned into a palm-sized old man in a blue robe, floating in front of him. Ji Tianxing could not help but frown. He muttered doubtfully, "Didn't senior sister save the sealed souls? Why is there another one here?" He suddenly remembered that when Bai Wuchen was saving the soul in the last crystal ball, the demon guards rushed into the secret room. Then, they fought with the devil race guards and hurriedly fought their way out of the secret chamber. Bai Wuchen seemed to have only broken half of the array in the last crystal ball. Thinking of this, Ji Tianqing suddenly understood everything. He looked at the old man in the blue robe in front of him and whispered, "Senior, are you talking to me?" The old man in the blue robe nodded and said solemnly, "This old man escaped from the crystal ball and did not reincarnate. I came to find you because I have something to ask you. Boy, are you a descendant of the Ji family of the royal Azure dynasty?" Ji Tianqing did not know what he wanted to do, but he guessed that he did not mean any harm. He answered honestly, "Yes." The old man in the blue robe showed a touch of joy and continued to ask, "Is it the Ji family of the imperial cities for aristocratic families? The family that specializes in forging weapons?" "Of course." Ji Tianqing nodded and asked, "Senior, do you know the Ji family? Or do you have any relationship with the Ji family?" The old man in the blue robe smiled and nodded. This old man and the Ji family have more than just a relationship. To be precise, this old man was once a member of the Ji family. The Ji family? Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and showed a surprised expression. "May I ask who you are?" This old man is the trusted follower of the first generation of the Ji family. I was also the head steward of the Ji family. Originally, this old man did not have the surname Ji, but the family head granted me the surname Ji. Therefore, this old man's surname is Ji Wenxiang. Ji Tianqing was even more surprised when he heard Ji Wenxiang's words. He showed a face full of disbelief. The first generation of the Ji family? Isn't that our Ji family's ancestor? Senior, you are the head steward of our ancestor? But, our ancestor has been dead for more than 100 years. Ji Wenxiang showed a playful smile and shook his head. The person who has been dead for more than 100 years is this old man. This old man's soul has been imprisoned here for more than 120 years. As for the family head, he was an unfathomable expert. How could he die so easily? The younger generations of the Ji family all thought that the family head was dead. In fact, the family head was only missing. I do not believe that the family head is dead. Ji Tianqing did not know much about the things that happened 100 years ago. Other than knowing that the Ji family's ancestor was called Ji Rulong, he knew nothing else. Now, after hearing Ji Wenxiang's words, he was shocked and even more confused. "Senior, why did my family's ancestor go missing? Why was your soul imprisoned by the devil race for more than 100 years? The 6th update has been delivered. Thank you, brothers, for your tips and recommendation tickets." Xiao He bowed to thank everyone. Chapter 158. Although Ji Wenxiang's soul had been imprisoned for more than 100 years and was already very weak, the memories of the past were still fresh in his mind. He answered without hesitation, "The experts of the demon race have long wanted to deal with the family head. They wanted to force the family head to tell them the whereabouts of the heavenly star pearl. In that great battle, the family head and I were besieged by many experts of the demon race. I died in battle while protecting the family head. After I died, the experts of the demon race extracted my soul and imprisoned me in an evil artifact. Every day, they would use secret techniques to beat me and torture me for information about the heavenly star pearl." Ji Tianqing's expression changed slightly, and a look of surprise flashed across his eyes. "The heavenly star pearl? Senior, why are the demon race looking for the heavenly star pearl?" The information about the heavenly star pearl was told to him by the sword soul, the burial of heaven. He had always thought that this was his biggest secret and that no one else would know about it. However, he did not expect that the demon race had been investigating the whereabouts of the heavenly star pearl for more than 100 years. It was obvious that the demon race also knew about the heavenly star pearl. Ji Wenxiang shook his head and said angrily, "I also don't know why the demon race is looking for the heavenly star pearl. However, in the past 100 years, I have heard from the experts of the demon race that the heavenly star pearl seems to be a treasure that appeared in the ancient star realm 1,000 years ago. It is an earth-shattering treasure." Ji Tianqing frowned. After thinking for a while, he asked, "Senior, the demon race ambushed our family head. Does our family head really know the whereabouts of the heavenly star pearl?" Ji Wenxiang shook his head and said doubtfully, "I am not sure about this. I have never heard the family head mention anything about the heavenly star pearl." Ji Tianqing nodded slightly. After thinking for a while, he murmured softly, "So the demon race has such a deep blood feud with our Ji family. In the future, when I am strong enough, I will definitely take revenge. However, the family head has not appeared for more than 100 years. I wonder if the family head is still alive? When the experts of the demon race ambushed you, I wonder if the family head successfully escaped." Ji Wenxiang frowned and thought for a moment, then said with certainty, "From what I see, the patriarch should have successfully escaped. If he's killed by the demons, his soul will definitely be extracted and imprisoned here. The demons will definitely interrogate him about the whereabouts of the heavenly star bead." Ji Tianqing nodded in agreement. Since the ancestor's soul wasn't imprisoned, it means that the ancestor successfully escaped. "It's very likely that my ancestor is still alive, isn't it, Senior?" Ji Wenxiang quickly nodded. Of course. Back then, the patriarch's strength had reached the peak of the Yuan Dan stage and he had a lifespan of 200 to 300 years. As long as nothing unexpected happened to him, he should still be alive. A hint of joy appeared in Ji Tianqing's eyes. He thought about the little black dragon in the forbidden grounds of the Ji clan, so he asked Ji Wenxiang, "Senior, our Ji family has a freezing ice dragon. It's most likely that the forefather caught it from the endless eastern sea. Do you know about this matter?" "Frost flood dragon?" Ji Wenxiang was startled. After a moment of recollection, he nodded and said, "Yes, there is such a thing. However, the patriarch didn't go to the distant eastern sea. The patriarch took that freezing ice dragon with him when he left the Divine Hui sect." "Divine Hui sect?" Ji Tianqing frowned and said doubtfully, "Could it be a big sect in the ancient star realm?" Ji Wenxiang shook his head and said, "The Divine Hui sect is not a sect in the ancient star realm, but in the Yong'an region. The Yong'an region and the Tianshan region are neighbors. The Divine Hui sect was once the #1 sect in the Yong'an region. The patriarch was the youngest elder in the Divine Hui sect. He was extremely powerful and skilled in the art of forging. He was quite famous in the entire Yong'an region. After the great change in the Divine Hui sect, the patriarch took the freezing ice dragon and left the sect. He came to the Qingyun country in the Tianshan region and founded the Ji family." "I see. Yong'an region. Shenhui sect." Ji Tianqing murmured to himself as he committed these two names to memory. He had promised the little black dragon that he would help it find the dragon crystal and recover all its power. All this time, he had no clue where to start, so he could only bury this matter in the bottom of his heart. Since Ji Wenxiang was a trusted aide of the Ji family's patriarch and knew a lot of secrets, Ji Tianqing took the opportunity to ask, "Senior, the freezing ice dragon's dragon crystal seemed to have been taken away by our patriarch. Do you know where it is?" Ji Wenxiang frowned and thought for a while, then shook his head and said, "I don't know the details. If you want to investigate, you can go to the Divine Hui sect in the Yong'an region. Maybe you can find some clues there. However, with your current strength, you can't enter the Divine Hui sect without a proper reason." Ji Tianqing made a mental note and saluted him, "Thank you, Senior, for telling me so many secrets from 100 years ago and solving my confusion." Ji Wenxiang smiled and showed a gratified expression. "Although I've been dead for more than 100 years, knowing that the patriarch might still be alive, I can reincarnate with peace of mind. I see you again today. With such a wise and calm descendant like you, the Ji family will definitely prosper." This old man is comforted. After the soul left the crystal ball, it would quickly dissipate into the world. Ji Wenxiang's soul had been imprisoned and tortured for more than 100 years, so it was very weak. Just now, he had chatted with Ji Tianqing for so long, so his soul had become extremely thin, almost transparent, and would soon dissipate. Before dissipating, Ji Wenxiang did not forget to warn him, "Young master, the demon race is cunning and cruel. You must not provoke them. Even if there is a blood feud, you must wait until you are strong enough to take revenge. Also, if the patriarch is still alive and you find him one day, please pass on a message for me. I, Ji Wenxiang, have no regrets towards the Ji family. I was born a member of the Ji family, and I will die as a ghost of the Ji family." Ji Wenxiang's voice became weaker and weaker until it could no longer be heard. After a few breaths, his soul completely dissipated, and he was reincarnated. Ji Tianqing watched Ji Wenxiang's soul dissipate and stood there for a long time with a solemn expression. He was filled with respect for this old servant of the Ji family. At the same time, he could not help but think, what kind of person is my patriarch? How could he make Ji Wenxiang follow him for life and be so loyal? The demon race has been searching for the heavenly star bead, and my patriarch is actually related to it. Things are getting more and more complicated. It seems that I must be more careful in searching for the heavenly star bead. The heavenly star bead, the little black dragon, the Yong and region, the Shenhui sect. One day, I will investigate everything, find the patriarch in the heavenly star bead, and help the little black dragon retrieve the dragon crystal. Ji Tianqing secretly made up his mind. One day, he would unravel the mystery. However, to get to the bottom of it, he had to be strong enough. Most importantly, he had to escape from this secret room and leave the demon cave. Today is the 6th chapter of the new week. Brothers, please vote for me. Thank you. Chapter 159. In the depths of the demon cave, in a spacious and dark secret chamber. Demons and ghosts were carved on the walls, and 8 stone lamps were lit in the 4 corners, emitting a dim yellow light. Many gems were inlaid on the ceiling, and they shone brightly as if they were forming some kind of array diagram. In addition to the cold and bloody aura in the secret chamber, there was also a mysterious aura. In the middle of the secret chamber, there was a blood pool with a radius of more than 10 meters. The pool was filled with dark red blood, and under the stimulation of the power of the formation, it was constantly flowing and surging. There was a statue in the middle of the blood pool. It was a devil with black wings, 4 thick arms, and a green face and fangs. The power of the entire blood pool was constantly converging on the statue, causing the black statue to faintly emit a bloody light. At this moment, the Blood Moon Infanta and the High Priest were standing at the edge of the blood pool and talking in a low voice. The High Priest said in a cold tone, "Blood Moon Infanta, I just went to the soul cell to check. More than 30 soul-binding chains were all severed, and the 39 souls that we imprisoned there were all rescued by those bastards from the Sky Pillar sect. That kid called Ji Ling was also rescued by the Sky Pillar sect disciples." The Blood Moon Infanta's blood-red eyes were filled with intense anger and killing intent. She furrowed her brows and gritted her teeth as she cursed, "Those damned Sky Pillar sect disciples. They actually snuck into the soul cell while we were out and released so many souls. Those are the souls that we have plundered for the past 100 years. Most of them have some clues and secrets. Ji Ling's soul is related to the Sky Pillar sect's sealing array. We didn't even get the information about the sealing array, and Ji Ling's soul was rescued. Damn it. Damn it. If I catch them again, I will definitely refine them into blood and imprison their souls forever." The Blood Moon Infanta became angrier as she spoke. She was so angry that her body trembled, and she subconsciously slapped the blood pool under her feet. Bang! With a muffled sound, a 3-meter-tall wave swept up in the blood pool, and countless dark red blood droplets splashed out. The High Priest frowned and hurriedly crossed his arms over his chest, bowing to the statue in the blood pool in a strange manner. As he bowed, he also prayed a few words, which seemed to be some kind of scripture or incantation. After praying, he looked at the Blood Moon Infanta and said in a solemn tone, "Your Highness, please restrain your anger. Don't be disrespectful to the statue of the Demon Emperor." The Blood Moon Infanta was startled for a moment. Then, a look of shame and self-blame appeared on her face. She also crossed her arms and covered her chest, bowing to the statue of the Devil Emperor in the blood pool. She recited an incantation and apologized repeatedly. A moment later, the Blood Moon Infanta finished her prayer and said to the High Priest in a deep voice, "High Priest, I will personally lead a team of warriors to infiltrate the Sky Pillar sect again and take back Ji Ling's soul. Only by getting the secret of the sealing formation out of him can we save His Majesty as soon as possible." However, the High Priest shook his head and rejected her idea. "Your Highness, the Sky Pillar sect is already on guard and will definitely strengthen their defenses. You'll only be throwing your life away if you sneak into the Sky Pillar sect with your warriors. Not to mention, we have more important things to do. Investigating the Heavenly Star Bead is far more important than investigating the sealing formation." The Blood Moon Infanta frowned, and a look of doubt appeared in her eyes. "Investigating the Heavenly Star Bead now? How? Those souls in the soul prison have all been rescued. It's impossible for us to find any clues quickly." The High Priest smiled and said in a playful tone, "Didn't you capture a disciple of the Sky Pillar sect yesterday evening?" The Blood Moon Infanta frowned and said with a look of contempt, "That human brat? He's so weak, and he's not even 20 years old. How could he know about the Heavenly Star Bead?" The High Priest sneered and asked, "Blood Moon Infanta, you shouldn't have forgotten the first time we met that brat when we infiltrated the Sky Pillar sect a few days ago, right?" Although he was as weak as an ant, a mysterious black hole suddenly appeared beside him and sucked away 60% of your power. The Blood Moon Infanta's expression became unnatural when this matter was mentioned. Her eyes were filled with shame and anger. "Humph. That damn brat must have some secret treasure to protect himself. Otherwise, with his strength, he would have been smashed into meat paste by me." The High Priest said with a smile, "You're right. He does have a secret treasure. When I rescued you, I sensed a mysterious and ancient aura in that black hole. According to the information left by the Demon King, that mysterious aura was very similar to the Heavenly Star Bead." The Blood Moon Infanta frowned in doubt. "Why does that brat have the aura of the Heavenly Star Bead?" The High Priest said calmly, "We'll only know after we investigate that brat. Although he's very weak, he might be related to the Heavenly Star Bead. If we can use him, we'll have a chance to find the Heavenly Star Bead. As long as we find the Heavenly Star Bead, we'll be able to find Kenshin's tomb. Our clan will be able to rise again and be more prosperous than 1,000 years ago. At that time, let alone a mere Tianshan region, our clan will be able to control the entire continent." The High Priest fantasized as he spoke. He became more and more excited, and his tone became more and more high-pitched. His eyes shone brightly. The Blood Moon Infanta frowned and became more and more confused. "High Priest, we only need to break the seal of the Sky-bearing sect and rescue the Demon King. At that time, as long as we use the Heavenly Star Bead to help the Demon King recover his vitality, our clan will be able to take revenge and easily control the Tianshan region. Isn't this what we've been working hard for? Why do we have to look for Kenshin's tomb? What does the Kenshin's tomb have to do with our clan's revival?" The High Priest looked at her deeply and chuckled. Your Highness, you're still too young and know too little. It seems that the Demon King hasn't told you about the ancient legend of our clan." "What ancient legend?" The Blood Moon Infanta stared at the High Priest. Her heart was filled with doubt, shame, and anger. The High Priest's attitude made her feel that her dignity and status were being challenged and looked down upon. That legend was spread from 1,000 years ago. The High Priest looked at the Demon King's statue in the blood pool. His eyes were filled with reminiscence as he spoke slowly in a low voice. "Blood Moon Infanta, you should know that our clan's constitution is different from that of the human clan. Our body structure is also different. The human clan is born with an elixir field, but the demon clan doesn't have an elixir field. We only have meridians and strong bodies. We can't cultivate the 5 elements primordial chi like the human clan. We can only cultivate the blood demon path, Azura path, corpse demon path, and other evil secret techniques. Because of this, the other clans in the world view us as the most vicious clan. They can't wait to kill us all. However, this wasn't the intention of our clan's ancestors. It was predestined. Our clan was also forced to do this. Although the evil secret techniques we cultivate can increase our strength quickly, they have unavoidable drawbacks. They cause great harm to our bodies. The stronger our clansmen are, the more intense the pain they have to endure during cultivation. Their bodies will also undergo various changes. In the end, they will become strange and ferocious monsters. Chapter 160. Hearing the high priest's words, the blood moon Infanta nodded in agreement. The secret technique of the blood demon sect that she cultivated required her to devour the blood essence of all living beings and absorb their essence and power. Although her strength could increase rapidly, allowing her to become an Origin Core realm expert at the age of 20, she still had to endure the pain. However, the pain she had to endure every time she cultivated was also unimaginable to others. Every month, there would be a day when her body would uncontrollably change, turning her into a hideous monster. A row of sharp spikes would protrude from her spine, and wing-like black bones would grow from her shoulders. Even her head would become several times bigger, and her face would become ferocious. Every time her body changed, she couldn't bear the heart-wrenching pain, and she didn't dare to look at her hideous appearance. Many times, she couldn't help but imagine. What would she look like when she reached the Heaven Origin realm? Could it be that she would be like her father, the Demon King, and turn into a black monster the size of a hill? Every time she thought of her father's hideous appearance and how he stayed in the cave all year round and rarely went out, she shuddered. Therefore, she often wore a large black robe to cover herself completely, only revealing her eyes. She didn't want to expose her hideous side to others. At this time, the high priest's low voice became resounding, full of excitement and hope. Although our race has a blood feud with Kenshin, we have to admit that Kenshin is the world's #1 martial arts genius. The drawbacks and dangers of the demon sect's secret technique have always troubled our race since ancient times. However, 1,000 years ago, Kenshin created his own secret technique that perfectly solved our race's problem. Hearing this, the blood moon Infanta was full of doubts and couldn't help but ask. High Priest, Kenshin isn't a demon. How could his secret technique solve our race's problem? The high priest narrowed his eyes and said in a playful tone, "Legend has it that the secret technique created by Kenshin requires one to destroy one's dantian to cultivate it. In other words, only those without an dantian can cultivate his martial arts and even reach the divine state." Hearing this, the blood moon Infanta was shocked. She couldn't help but widen her eyes in disbelief. "I see. My clan is born without a dantian. Isn't that the best way to cultivate the Kenshin's secret arts? There's actually such a unique martial art in this world? Every human has a dantian, so who would destroy their own dantian just to cultivate his inherited supreme art?" The high priest nodded and said meaningfully, "Yes, Kenshin's ultimate technique is the most unique in the world. If our clan can obtain his inheritance, we will be able to resolve our problems and obtain greater strength. Furthermore, when our race no longer cultivates the cruel secret arts of the Blood Devil Dao, the Azura Dao, and the Corpse Devil Dao, we will not incur the wrath of the other races. If we were to cultivate Kenshin's ultimate arts, we would be able to openly appear on the continent and rule over the major regions. We would no longer be besieged by other races, and we wouldn't have to hide in the dark underground anymore. At that time, why would our clan worry about not being able to rise again? With the talent of our clan, if we all cultivate Kenshin's ultimate techniques, we will definitely be able to crush other races and dominate the entire continent." The high priest's emotions became high and excited. His blood boiled, and his eyes flickered with a dark red light. The blood moon Infanta's heart was also in turmoil. She was both shocked and excited. She was filled with anticipation and yearning for the legendary Kenshin's ultimate techniques. She couldn't help but imagine that after she cultivated Kenshin's ultimate techniques, not only would she become stronger, but she would also be able to walk openly on the continent without turning into an ugly and ferocious monster. However, after calming down, she couldn't help but ask, "High Priest, we have been investigating the whereabouts of the heavenly astral bead. Could it be that the heavenly astral bead is related to Kenshin's ultimate techniques?" The High Priest nodded and said in a serious tone, "The heavenly astral bead is a treasure left behind by Kenshin 1,000 years ago. After Kenshin fell, his ultimate techniques were all in Kenshin's tomb. Countless experts in the world have been searching for it for nearly 1,000 years, but no one has been able to find it. However, as long as we find the heavenly astral bead, we can use it to sense the whereabouts of Kenshin's tomb. Only by finding the Kenshin's tomb can we obtain the Kenshin's ultimate techniques and allow our demon clan to be reborn. We can once again rule the continent and rule the world." Hearing this, the Blood Moon Infanta finally understood. No wonder her father spent hundreds of years to find the heavenly astral bead. She frowned and pondered for a while before saying seriously, "High Priest, since this is the case, I will temporarily ignore Ji Ling's soul. Let's go and investigate that human brat first. I hope he can really help us find the heavenly astral bead." The High Priest smiled and nodded. He said in a cold tone, "Which cell did you imprison him in? If we go and interrogate him now, we will definitely gain something." "He is in the 5th cell. I have sealed his acupoints and set up a formation in the cell." As the Blood Moon Infanta spoke, she followed the High Priest out of the blood pool and walked towards the door. Ji Tianqing was in a dark secret room. He waved his hands and released golden true essence to break the seal on the stone door. The seal on this secret room was very powerful. It was a supreme grade profound grade formation that could only be set up by an origin core expert. With Ji Tianqing's true essence realm strength, it was almost impossible for him to break the formation. However, his talent in formations was extremely high. He didn't need to completely break the formation. He only needed to break the formation on the stone door, and it would be enough for him to escape. Since 2 hours ago, he had been concentrating on breaking the formation. Now, he had already found the way to break the formation and broke a small gap in the formation on the stone door. In these 2 hours, his mind and true essence had been greatly consumed, causing his face to be pale and his body to be drenched in sweat. However, he was in high spirits and his heart was filled with anticipation. He didn't feel tired at all. According to his estimation, he would be able to break the formation on the stone door and escape from the secret room in 8 hours at most. However, at this moment, he suddenly felt that the seal on the stone door was fluctuating violently. The dark brown stone door actually lit up with a dark red blood light. Ji Tianqing understood that in such a situation, either someone had activated the formation or the formation had been attacked. However, he was more willing to believe that it was the former. Oh no! It must be that damned demoness. She discovered that I was secretly breaking the formation and reactivated it. Ji Tianqing furrowed his brows and unwillingly gave up on breaking the formation. After a few breaths, the dark red blood light on the stone door actually dissipated with a bang. Immediately after, the stone door was pulled open from the outside. A graceful white figure instantly rushed into the secret room. When Ji Tianqing saw her clearly, he was stunned on the spot. Chapter 161. Without a doubt, this woman in a white dress was Yun Yao. Ji Tianqing never expected that Yun Yao, who had escaped from the demon cave, would actually return. Eldest senior sister. You. Why did you return? Yun Yao's cold and worried expression eased when she saw that he was safe and sound. I came back to save you. She didn't have time to explain anything. She only said a few short words before she pulled Ji Tianqing and rushed out of the secret room. Ji Tianqing's body shook, and a warm current flowed through his heart. He and Yun Yao were very clear about how dangerous this demon cave was. Yun Yao had clearly escaped from the clutches of the demon cave, and she was covered in injuries. Under such circumstances, Yun Yao still came back to save him without any regard for her own safety. How could he not be touched by such deep friendship? He simply couldn't believe that he was so important to Yun Yao that she would risk her life to save him. As he followed Yun Yao out of the prison cell and shuttled through the dark tunnel, he didn't forget to thank Yun Yao sincerely. "Eldest senior sister, thank you." Yun Yao said calmly, "I invited you to help me complete the mission. Of course, I won't leave you behind." In a moment, the two of them rushed out of the dark tunnel and entered the huge empty cave. Yun Yao identified the direction and was about to run towards the exit with Ji Tianqing. At this moment, a stone door not far away opened. The Blood Moon Infanta and the High Priest, who were dressed in black robes, walked out of the stone door. The two of them were about to head towards the prison cell where Ji Tianqing was imprisoned when they suddenly saw Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing. Their expressions changed instantly, and a cold light and murderous intent flashed in their eyes. "Damn bastard! How dare you come back to save him? You're courting death." The high priest roared furiously. His figure turned into a black mist and pounced toward Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing. The Blood Moon Infanta also followed closely behind. She turned into a black shadow and rushed towards Ji Tianqing as fast as lightning. "Brat, you think you can escape after entering the Devil's Cave? In your dreams." She had originally wanted to kill Ji Tianqing. Now that she knew that Ji Tianqing was related to the Heavenly Star Bead, there was no way she would let Ji Tianqing go. Swoosh! Swish! In the blink of an eye, the High Priest and the Blood Moon Commandery Princess had arrived in front of Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing and launched an attack using Devil Dao's secret techniques. Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing's expressions also became extremely ugly. Their eyes were solemn. At the critical moment, Yun Yao pushed Ji Tianqing away without hesitation and pushed him towards the exit of the Devil Cave. "I'll block them. Hurry up and leave." As she spoke, she waved her sword and sent out a sky full of sword radiance toward the High Priest and the Blood Moon Commandery Princess. A total of 49 sword radiances flickered with cold light, illuminating an area of dozens of meters and creating a terrifying hurricane. The High Priest untied the black snake whip from his waist and sent out a sky full of black light blades to block all 49 sword radiances. The black light blades and the sword radiances collided, creating a series of loud bangs that reverberated in the spacious cave. Ji Tianqing was pushed to the exit of the Devil Cave by Yun Yao, but he turned around and rushed back to her side without hesitation. "Eldest senior sister, let's leave together. You won't leave me behind, and I won't abandon you and run away." After speaking, he pulled out the black dragon sword and slashed at the Blood Moon Commandery Princess with all his strength. Swoosh! The 3-meter-long snow-white sword radiance slashed at the Blood Moon Commandery Princess' head with an overbearing power. The Blood Moon Commandery Princess used a Blood Devil Dao secret technique to form a pair of huge blood hands and blocked the attack with all her strength. Bam! Bam! The snow-white sword radiance collapsed, and her pair of blood hands were also chopped into pieces. However, she was not injured at all. She used the Devil Dao again and formed another pair of blood hands. She slapped at Ji Tianqing fiercely. Ji Tianqing hurriedly used the shadowless step to retreat and counterattacked with the black dragon sword at the same time. Not far away, Yun Yao was fighting fiercely with the High Priest. She was also retreating while fighting. She didn't want to fight the High Priest head-on. She used all her strength to avoid the High Priest's attacks. She only used all her strength to block the High Priest's attacks when she couldn't. After 10 breaths, Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing were about to retreat to the exit of the Devil Cave. At this moment, Yun Yao formed a sword art with her left hand and waved her ice-cold sword with her right hand. 5 huge sword radiances were brazenly slashed out. Each sword radiance was 5 meters long and carried a terrifying power that could shatter heaven and earth. They fiercely slashed at the High Priest and the Blood Moon Commandery Princess. When she used this sword technique, her power was pushed to the limit. Her white dress fluttered in the wind, fluttering in the wind. Her pretty face, which was as pale as a sheet of paper, also showed an abnormal flush of red. Obviously, this was her ultimate killing move. After using it, her power would drop greatly. Therefore, she would not use it easily. Heavenly Star 5 Swords. 5 shocking sword radiances cut through the dark night sky like 5 thunderbolts. They were extremely violent. The Blood Moon Commandery Princess did not dare to take them head-on. She immediately retreated and dodged. Even the High Priest, who was the strongest among them, had a serious expression. He waved the black snake whip with all his strength and struck out hundreds of black sword radiances to resist with all his might. Bam! 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 Countless black sword radiances were shattered and exploded into clouds of black fog, causing the black fog within a radius of 10 meters to surge. The shocking sword radiances slashed on the ground and actually cut a 10-meter-long and half-meter-wide trench in the rocky ground. Dust and gravel flew up into the sky. Yin Yao did not expect the Heavenly Star 5 Swords to defeat the High Priest and the Blood Moon Commandery Princess. She only hoped to force them to retreat temporarily and win a chance to escape. Let's go. While the High Priest was resisting the sword radiances, she immediately pulled Ji Tianqing and rushed out of the exit. They ran madly in the dark tunnel. Both of them unleashed their last bit of potential and rushed out of the tunnel at the fastest speed. They rushed out of the cave outside the mountain. In less than 15 minutes, Ji Tianqing and Yin Yao rushed out of the dark tunnel and returned to the forest at the foot of the mountain. However, the High Priest and the Blood Moon Commandery Princess chased after them just as they rushed out of the Devil Cave. Little bastard. Don't even think about escaping. The High Priest was the first to catch up with Ji Tianqing. He waved the black snake whip in his hand and struck out hundreds of black light blades. They enveloped Ji Tianqing. Seeing this, Yin Yao rushed in front of Ji Tianqing without hesitation and waved her sword to help him block the attack. Bam! 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 With a muffled sound, Yin Yao was sent flying. She spat out a mouthful of blood and fell into the bushes 10 meters away. She was already seriously injured and had just used 30% of her power to execute the Heavenly Star 5 Swords. Now, she was already an arrow at the end of its flight and was extremely weak. She could not even block a single attack from the High Priest. After the High Priest sent Yin Yao flying with a single attack, he waved the black snake whip again and attacked Ji Tianqing with incomparable ferocity. The Blood Moon Commandery Princess also rushed over. She raised a pair of large bloody hands and fiercely slapped down on Ji Tianqing. Facing the joint attack of 2 Origin Core Realm experts, Ji Tianqing did not have the slightest ability to resist with his strength. At the critical moment of life and death, his heart was filled with grief, indignation, and a monstrous killing intent. He exploded with all his strength and executed the shadowless steps with all his might to retreat and dodge. Even if it was futile, he would not give up resisting. Chapter 162. The High Priest and the Blood Moon Infanta were about to kill Ji Tianqing on the spot. At this critical moment, a black light burst out of Ji Tianqing's body. The black light contained the aura of death and was very mysterious. It formed a huge black hole and enveloped the High Priest and the Blood Moon Infanta. Their attacks were blocked by the mysterious black hole. The black hole released a strong devouring power and quickly devoured their cultivation. The High Priest and the Blood Moon Infanta were stunned. When they saw the mysterious black hole appear again, they were frightened. Damn bastard! It's this black hole again. The Blood Moon Infanta cursed in fear. She obviously hadn't forgotten the fear of having 60% of her cultivation devoured last time. That ancient aura appeared again. It's really similar to the aura of the Heavenly Star bead. Although the High Priest's face was full of fear, he felt the ancient aura in the black hole again and became excited. In just a few breaths, the Blood Moon Infanta and the High Priest's cultivation was devoured. They struggled with all their might and tried to break free from the black hole. Ji Tianqing looked at the black hole in front of him and then looked at the High Priest and the Blood Moon Infanta who were unable to move. He was also shocked and in disbelief. When the mysterious black hole appeared in the past, it was when he was unconscious. He didn't see it with his own eyes. He only heard from Qianyu that the mysterious black hole was very terrifying. It devoured all of Qianyu's cultivation and turned it from the size of a small mountain to the size of a small cat. At this moment, Ji Tianqing saw the mysterious black hole with his own eyes. How could he not be shocked? Finally, he managed to escape from death. Only then did his hanging heart relax, and he secretly thanked himself for his luck. After another 3 breaths, 50% of the high priest and the blood moon infanta's cultivation was devoured. If this continued, their cultivation level would drop and they wouldn't be able to recover even if they cultivated for half a year. At this moment, the high priest used a secret demonic technique to escape from the black hole. Demonic explosion. He shouted in a low voice and threw the black snake whip into the black hole reluctantly. He waved his hands and released black light and demonic energy to use the secret technique. Under his control, the black snake whip exploded in the black hole with a loud bang. Amidst an earth-shattering boom, the black snake whip transformed into a dazzling crimson light, bursting with an unparalleled force. Boom! The explosion of the black snake whip temporarily blocked the devouring of the black hole. At that moment, the high priest and the blood moon infanta seized the opportunity to escape from the black hole and quickly retreated into the distance. The two of them stood 30 meters away, still in shock. They stared at the mysterious black hole with complicated expressions. The high priest sacrificed a black snake whip. His face was twisted with anger, and his heart ached to the extreme. Damn it! The artifact that I used 30 years of blood essence to nurture is gone just like that. The blood moon infanta also gritted her teeth and cursed angrily, damned reptile, it actually swallowed another 50% of the power I just recovered. This was the second time her cultivation had been devoured by the mysterious black hole. She was even more aware of how terrifying that mysterious black hole was. She had no room to resist at all. At the same time, the mysterious black hole suddenly disappeared. Ji Tianqing came to his senses, turned around, and fled into the distance without hesitation. The high priest and the blood moon infanta immediately turned into black fog and chased after Ji Tianqing as fast as lightning. The two of them were extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, they rushed to within 10 meters of Ji Tianqing and were about to launch an attack with a secret technique. At this moment, Yunyao had already used her power to suppress her injuries. She rushed out of the forest and came to Ji Tianqing's side. She took out the Xuanji pagoda and used a secret technique to control it. It released a dazzling golden light, forming a golden light shield that enveloped her and Ji Tianqing. Junior brother Tianqing, let's go! Yunyao shouted in a low voice. She controlled the Xuanji pagoda to release a powerful and mysterious force. She took Ji Tianqing and flew into the sky. Swoosh! The golden light shield of the Xuanji pagoda enveloped her and Ji Tianqing. They flew out of the forest and toward the distant sky in an instant. In just a few breaths, the Xuanji pagoda took them across the mountains and valleys and disappeared into the gloomy sky. The high priest and the blood moon infanta were unwilling to give up. They chased with all their might for a while, but they couldn't catch up. They had no choice but to give up the chase. The two of them cursed furiously before they turned around and returned to the demon cave. Swoosh! The golden light shield of the Xuanji pagoda was like a shooting star that streaked across the night sky. It brought Ji Tianqing and Yunyao and landed on a mountain peak. After the two of them landed on the ground, the golden light shield of the Xuanji pagoda disappeared. It became dim and shrunk to the size of a palm. Yunyao's injuries were extremely severe. When she controlled the Xuanji pagoda just now, she finally used up the last trace of vital essence in her body. After her feet landed on the ground, her body went limp and she fell into a coma on the grass. Senior sister. What happened to you? Ji Tianqing hurriedly held her in his arms and called out to her worriedly. However, Yunyao's eyes were tightly shut. She was severely injured and unconscious. She was completely unconscious. Ji Tianqing hurriedly took out a healing elixir from his 100 treasures brocade pouch and gently placed it in her mouth. He then pressed his palm against Yun Yao's palm and transferred his vital essence into her body to help her refine the elixir. After doing all this, he could only pray silently that nothing would happen to Yun Yao. He hoped that she would wake up as soon as possible. He raised his head and looked at the sky. It was the darkest moment before dawn. It's going to be dawn soon. I have to bring senior sister and leave this place as soon as possible. Otherwise, we'll be dead if the demons come after us. At the thought of this, he hurriedly carried Yun Yao on his back and shuttled through the forest on the mountain peak to find the whereabouts of the spirit crane. He clearly remembered that Yun Yao and Bai Wuchen had left the spirit crane and the silver moon wolf on this mountain peak. The silver moon wolf might have been ridden away by Bai Wuchen, but the spirit crane might still be here. However, after searching around the mountain peak, he still couldn't find the spirit crane. The spirit crane must have flown away long ago, right? Even if I have to run on my feet, I'll carry senior sister back to the sect. Ji Tianqing made up his mind. He carried Yun Yao on his back and ran wildly through the forest, heading back in the direction of the Sky Pillar sect. Not long after, the darkness between heaven and earth dissipated, and a trace of white appeared on the horizon. A new day had arrived, and the sun was about to rise. Although Yun Yao wasn't seriously injured, Ji Tianqing was also seriously injured. He didn't have much vital essence left in his body. He carried Yun Yao and ran wildly over the mountains. He was still panting from exhaustion, and his vision was blurry. However, he gritted his teeth and persevered. He refused to stop even if he was drenched in sweat. He continued to run through the forest. It wasn't until 2 hours later that he had crossed several mountains and was far away from the Devil's Cave that he stopped to rest for a while. He ate 2 spirit fruits that could recover his vital essence. Only then did he regain some strength. Then, he carried Yun Yao on his back and continued to run. From the time he met Yun Yao until now, he had never been so close to Yun Yao. Yun Yao was lying on his back, unconscious. Her body was pressed tightly against his. He could clearly feel Yun Yao's graceful figure and smell the natural fragrance emitted from her body. This made him feel a strange feeling in his heart. He thought to himself, other than me, I'm afraid no one else has been so close to Yun Yao, right? Soon, another 2 hours had passed, and the sun had risen to the sky. Ji Tianqing was running through the vast mountain range. He climbed over a mountain that was thousands of feet high. When he reached the foot of the mountain, he met 2 young men in white robes on a grassland. The 2 young men had imposing appearances. Their white robes were of the same style, and they carried swords on their backs. They exuded the confidence and arrogance unique to sect disciples. Chapter 163. 2 young men blocked Ji Tianqing's path, sizing up Ji Tianqing with playful eyes. Ji Tianqing furrowed his brows with an indifferent expression. After sizing up the 2 young men, he was about to take a detour and leave. However, the 2 young men stopped him from both sides with mocking sneers on their faces. Oh, is this kid a disciple of the sky-bearing sect? This kid is wearing a green robe, so he should be an external disciple of the sky-bearing sect. What a coincidence, we actually met a disciple of the sky-bearing sect here. Heh, look at this kid carrying a female disciple. Oh, what a beautiful female disciple. Unfortunately, she is seriously injured and unconscious. Kid, you are so lucky to be carrying a female disciple on your back in such a hurry. Are you in a hurry to find a place to consummate your marriage? The 2 young men in white robes echoed each other and mocked Ji Tianqing in a vulgar tone and expression. Ji Tianqing was very anxious and only wanted to take Yun Yao back to the sect to heal her injuries as soon as possible. Being blocked by 2 young men in white robes for no reason and being ridiculed unscrupulously by the 2 young men in white robes, he became furious and his expression became gloomy. I don't care who you are. Good dogs don't block the way. Get out of my way right now. Ji Tianqing yelled angrily in a cold tone and rushed forward with Yun Yao on his back. The two young men in white robes changed their expressions abruptly, revealing a furious expression. Heh, you are very arrogant. You are really reckless. A mere external disciple of the sky-bearing sect dares to talk to us like this. The people of the sky-bearing sect are becoming more and more arrogant. The two young men sneered and pulled out the swords on their backs, blocking Ji Tianqing with their swords. Kid, it looks like you are a newcomer, right? You don't even know the people of our Tianjian sect. We are the internal disciples of the Green Mountain sect. How dare you insult us? If we don't teach you a lesson today, others will think that our Tianjian sect is afraid of your sky-bearing sect. The two young men in white robes were angry. After reporting their identities, they approached Ji Tianqing with their swords, ready to attack. Ji Tianqing's face immediately turned cold, and his eyes were filled with anger. Looks like the two of you are really looking for trouble? Although he didn't know why the other party was hostile to the Sky Pillar sect's disciples, he didn't know why. However, the other party clearly had ill intentions and was deliberately targeting and making things difficult for him. Naturally, he would not tolerate it. He gently placed the unconscious Yun Yao on the grass. With the black dragon sword in his hand, he walked towards the two disciples of the Tianjian sect. Seeing his reaction, the two Tianjian sect disciples sneered with disdain. Heh, the people of the Sky Pillar sect are indeed very arrogant. A mere outer sect disciple dares to be arrogant? Brat, your sky-bearing sect only controls the heavenly stellar region because of your reputation as a 1,000-year-old sect. It won't be long before our Tianjian sect replaces you. Today, we will teach you an unforgettable lesson. Brat, remember that you have to avoid the people of the Tianjian sect when you see them. As soon as they finished speaking, the two disciples of the Tianjian sect waved their swords at the same time, sending out a few sword lights that flashed with cold light, attacking Ji Tianqing from both sides. Seeing the two unsheathing their swords, Ji Tianqing realized what was going on. The strength of these two inner sect disciples of the Tianjian sect was at most at the third level of the metaphysical realm. With a disdainful sneer, he pulled out the black dragon sword with a clang and swung it horizontally. Swish! The black dragon sword turned into a 3-meter-long snow-white sword light, exuding an extremely sharp and domineering energy, sweeping toward the two disciples of the Tianjian sect. As the snow-white sword light lit up, a translucent shadow of a flood dragon soared into the sky, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. Bang bang! With a dull sound, the sword lights of the two disciples of the Tianjian sect were instantly smashed into pieces by the black dragon sword. The violent power of the black dragon sword, the huge and frightening snow-white sword light, and the soaring flood dragon shadow immediately frightened the two disciples, causing them to retreat in panic. However, the black dragon sword was too fast. By the time they realized that something was wrong, it was already too late for them to retreat. With two dull bang-bang sounds, the two disciples of the Tianjian sect were hit by the sword light. They spat out mouthfuls of blood and flew backward, smashing into the grass 10 meters away. The two disciples rolled several times in the grass before stopping. They lay on the ground, trembling like sifting chaff, and their faces were pale. Dark red blood gushed out of their mouths and dripped onto their white robes. It was a ghastly sight under the sunlight. The two disciples lowered their heads and looked at their abdomens in disbelief. They saw that there was a deep sword wound on their abdomens, and blood was constantly gushing out of the wound. The black dragon sword had cut open a crack in the mystic-grade armor that they were wearing, and the armor was almost scrapped. Neither of them had expected this result, and it filled their hearts with horror. They couldn't believe that an outer sect disciple of the Sky Pillar sect had such terrifying strength that he could seriously injure them with a single sword strike. If it weren't for the protection of their mystic-grade armor, they would have been cut in half at the waist. Rustle, 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 Ji Tianqing gripped the black dragon sword and walked over with a cold expression. His feet made soft sounds as he stepped on the soft grass. His face was ice cold, and his whole body was filled with a strong chill and killing intent. The two disciples of the Tianjian sect sat on the grass dejectedly. They looked at him approaching step by step with frightened and panicked expressions. "Brat! What do you want to do? Don't tell me you dare to kill us? We are inner sect disciples of the Tianjian sect. If you dare to kill us, our sect will definitely crusade against the Sky Pillar sect and seek justice for us." Obviously, the two of them had lost their fighting spirit after being defeated by Ji Tianqing with a single sword strike. Their hearts were filled with fear. They were in the remote wilderness. If Ji Tianqing really killed them, they would have died in vain. However, Ji Tianqing walked up to them and didn't immediately kill them. He looked down at the two of them with a disdainful sneer on his face. "Hee, I thought the disciples of the Tianjian sect were so outstanding and brave. I didn't expect that two inner sect disciples couldn't even take a single sword strike from me. From this, it can be seen how unbearable the Tianjian sect is. You're simply trash. You two trash kept saying that you wanted to teach me a lesson. What about now? I'll give you a chance to live. Kneel down and admit your wrongs." Ji Tianqing stood with his sword in hand and shouted coldly with a stern expression. The two Tianjian sect disciples were immediately enraged and were about to draw their swords to counterattack. However, Ji Tianqing casually slashed out with his sword and sent the two of them flying again. Their injuries were even more serious, and they lay on the grass vomiting blood. "Kneel down and apologize. Or die," Ji Tianqing shouted coldly, his eyes surging with murderous intent. The two Tianjian sect disciples were completely shocked by him. They didn't know Ji Tianqing and didn't understand his nature. Just by looking at Ji Tianqing's posture, the two of them had no doubt that if they dared to resist, only death would await them. After hesitating for a moment, the two Tianjian sect disciples could only endure the humiliation and kneel on the ground to apologize to Ji Tianqing under the threat of death. "We were blind and shouldn't have offended Your Excellency. Your Excellency, please be magnanimous and spare our lives." Ji Tianqing watched the two of them endure the humiliation and kneel down to apologize. He sneered contemptuously and said, "Hee, you two are so greedy for life and afraid of death. In order to survive, you actually kneel down and beg for mercy. You two are cowardly trash who are greedy for life and afraid of death. How dare you call yourself a Tianjian sect disciple? How dare the Tianjian sect take in trash like you?" The two Tianjian sect disciples were so angry that they vomited blood. Their faces were ashen, and their bodies were trembling. If they didn't kneel down and apologize, Ji Tianqing would have killed them on the spot. Now that they had kneeled down and apologized, they were humiliated by Ji Tianqing. The two of them were full of regret. If they had known this would happen, they would have fought to the death. The 6th update has arrived. Please collect and recommend tickets. Thank you brothers for your generous rewards. Chapter 164. Since the two Tianjian sect disciples had already knelt down and apologized, Ji Tianqing didn't make things difficult for them. He put away the black dragon sword and returned to Yunyao's side. Then, he turned around and left with the unconscious Yunyao on his back. The two Tianjian sect disciples were filled with shame and resentment. They coldly stared at his back as he left. They couldn't help but say a few harsh words to Ji Tianqing, as if they were trying to regain some of their lost dignity. "Brat, don't be complacent. There will be plenty of time in the future. One day, I will personally wash away today's shame." Humph. In next month's Dragon Mountain tournament, our sect's disciples will definitely trample your Sky Pillar sect under our feet. Even if we aren't your match, our Tianjian sect will never lower our heads to your Sky Pillar sect. Ji Tianqing's footsteps paused as he frowned in confusion. Next month? Dragon Mountain tournament? Is it a competition between our sect and the Tianjian sect? He had never heard of this matter and didn't know what kind of grudges there were between the Sky Pillar sect and the Tianjian sect. However, he didn't ask the two Tianjian sect disciples. He silently kept this matter in mind and quickly left. After all, he didn't want to waste time on such trivial matters. He just wanted to take Yunyao back to the sect as soon as possible to heal her injuries. 4 hours later, it was already noon. The scorching sun in the sky was like a fire, and the air in the mountains was a bit hot. Ji Tianqing had been running for 4 hours without stopping. During this time, he had been attacked by demonic beasts several times, and his life had been in danger several times. Fortunately, he had the black dragon's sword in his hand. Every time, he was able to turn danger into safety. He used the black dragon's sword to kill or repel the demonic beasts that attacked him. Now, Ji Tianqing had run for 400 miles. He was exhausted and covered in sweat. His physical strength had been greatly consumed. When he passed by the peak of a mountain, he had no choice but to rest in the woods for a while. Then, he took out a pill and took it. Not long after he swallowed the pill, a series of muffled footsteps came from the mountainside, as if a huge beast was running in the mountain. Ji Tianqing's expression immediately changed. His eyes became solemn, and he clenched the black dragon's sword in his hand. Could it be that another demonic beast has smelled the scent of blood and is coming to attack me? He listened for a while and heard that there was more than one set of footsteps coming from halfway up the mountain. There are actually 3 demonic beasts, and they are rushing towards the mountain peak. After Ji Tianqing figured out the situation, he immediately carried the unconscious Yunyao on his back, turned around, and fled to the side. However, the heavy footsteps were getting closer and closer. Even though he was running with all his might, his speed was still not as fast as the 3 demonic beasts. After a few dozen breaths, 3 giant beasts of different colors rushed to the top of the mountain as fast as the wind. Ji Tianqing didn't have time to look back at the appearance of the 3 giant beasts. He gritted his teeth and ran as fast as he could. But at this moment, a shout full of anxiety and worry came from behind him. Ji Tianqing. Is that you? Stop. Suddenly hearing this familiar voice, Ji Tianqing was stunned for a moment and hurriedly stopped in his tracks. He looked back and found that the 3 giant beasts rushing to the top of the mountain were actually spirit beasts ridden by people. The leading spirit beast was the silver moon wolf, and the person riding on its back was Bai Wuchen. He was the one who shouted just now. The 2 spirit beasts beside the silver moon wolf were the 2 jade white lions raised by the Sky Pillar sect. The 2 people riding the jade white lions were old men in purple robes. They were the 2 elders of the Sky Pillar sect. One of them was the owner of the mysterious treasure pagoda, the 2nd elder. The other kind-looking old man was the spirit medicine elder of the spirit medicine hall. Ji Tianqing immediately understood that Bai Wuchen had returned to the sect to get reinforcements to save him and Yunyao. Only then did he heave a sigh of relief and relax his mind. At this moment, Bai Wuchen and the 2 elders rode their spirit beasts and rushed in front of him like a gust of wind. Seeing that he was carrying Yunyao on his back and Yunyao's clothes were stained with blood and she was unconscious, everyone was shocked. Ji Tianqing, what happened to eldest senior sister? Why is she unconscious? Bai Wuchen was the most anxious. He quickly jumped down from the silver moon wolf and rushed to Ji Tianqing's side to check on Yunyao's injuries. The 2 elders also walked over quickly and checked on Yunyao's condition with worried faces. Ji Tianqing nodded to the 2 elders as a greeting. Then, the spirit medicine elder checked on Yunyao's injuries and used his cultivation to help her suppress her injuries. He didn't want her injuries to drag on for too long and damage her cultivation base. Since the 2nd elder and Bai Wuchen couldn't help, they asked Ji Tianqing about what happened earlier. Ji Tianqing briefly told them about how Yunyao saved him and how the 2 of them worked together to escape from the Devil's Cave. Of course, he didn't tell them about the mysterious black hole. When Bai Wuchen heard that Yunyao was seriously injured and unconscious in order to save him, he was instantly filled with anger. He glared at Ji Tianqing angrily and shouted in a reproachful tone, Ji Tianqing, eldest senior sister is precious. She's the future successor of the sect leader. How could you let her be so seriously injured? How could you bear to do that? If I were you, I would definitely help eldest senior sister. I'd rather be seriously injured myself. In fact, even if Ji Tianqing was killed by the devil clan, Bai Wuchen wouldn't have the slightest bit of pity. He would even be secretly delighted. However, the result was that Yun Yao was seriously injured and unconscious. This made him extremely worried, and at the same time, he hated Ji Tianqing to the core. Ji Tianqing's face darkened when he was reprimanded by Bai Wuchen in front of the second elder. He glanced at Bai Wuchen and sneered. Even so, I'll live and die with eldest senior sister. We'll advance and retreat together. We'll never back down. Unlike some people who claim that they're calling for reinforcements, but in reality, they're just running away from the battle. They're as timid as a mouse. Bai Wuchen's face turned ashen when he heard that. He was furious and was about to explode. However, the second elder frowned and said in a dignified tone, "Wuchen, don't be reckless. Ji Tianqing is an outer sect disciple. With his true energy realm strength, it's already very lucky that he could join hands with Yun Yao to escape from the Devil's Cave. Moreover, he's already carried Yun Yao for more than 400 miles. He needs to rest now. In short, the three of you have completed the mission perfectly. You're all meritorious people. When you return to the sect master will definitely reward you." With the second elder's intervention, Bai Wuchen could only give up and suppress his anger. 15 minutes later, the spiritual medicine elder temporarily helped Yun Yao suppress her injuries. Everyone rode on their spirit beasts and left the mountain peak, returning to the Sky Pillar sect. The speed of the spirit beasts was naturally several times faster than Ji Tianqing's. 3 hours later, everyone returned to the Sky Pillar sect. After returning to the sect, the spiritual medicine elder brought Yun Yao to the spiritual medicine hall to treat her injuries. Ji Tianqing was about to return to the wind cloud courtyard when the second elder stopped him. "Ji Tianqing, the sect master has instructed that after you return to the sect, follow me to the Sky Pillar Palace to meet the sect master. He wants to reward you in person." Chapter 165. Ji Tianqing followed the second elder to the Sky Pillar Hall on the red firmament peak. Along the way, he was still wondering what reward the sect master would give him. This time, he had helped Yun Yao retrieve Ji Ling's soul and kept the Sky Pillar sect secret. This contribution was not big, but it was not small either. Ji Tianqing guessed that the sect master would most likely reward him with some cultivation techniques and pills, and then encourage him. After a while, he followed the second elder into the Sky Pillar Hall. Sect Master Chu Tiansheng, who was wearing a golden robe, was sitting on the sect master's throne in the north. Ji Tianqing walked to the center of the hall and bowed to Chu Tiansheng. Chu Tiansheng nodded slightly, revealing a satisfied expression. His voice was as loud as a bell, and he spoke in a dignified manner. "Ji Tianqing, this time you assisted Yun Yao in carrying out a mission. You went deep into the demon race's stronghold and risked your life to retrieve Ji Ling's soul. This is a great contribution. You are a meritorious member of our sect, so I must reward you well." As he spoke, he took out a small white jade bottle and a diamond-shaped black token from his interspatial ring. "I see that your injuries are not light, so I will reward you with 3 dew pills. This is a high-grade black-grade pill. It can help you quickly heal your injuries without affecting your martial arts foundation. In addition, I will also reward you with this Sky Pillar token." With that, Chu Tiansheng waved his hand and shot out a scarlet true essence that wrapped around the small white jade bottle and the Sky Pillar token. He flew them to Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing reached out to take the small white jade bottle and the Sky Pillar token. His eyes revealed a hint of doubt. The jade dew pill in the small white jade bottle was the best medicine for treating injuries. He was very clear on this point. However, he was puzzled as to why the sect master would reward him with this Sky Pillar token. Chu Tiansheng saw his confusion and explained in a kind tone, "This sky-raising command token is my token. Only 6 disciples in the sect have it. You are the 7th. With this token, you'll be able to freely enter and exit the ancient star realm. You'll also be able to freely enter and exit the sect's inner and outer sanctum, the martial pavilion, the spirit medicine hall, and other important places. Hearing Chu Tianqing's explanation, Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows, his eyes flashing with surprise. With this token in hand, his status and authority were almost on par with the elders of the sect. Only 6 disciples in the Sky Pillar sect had the Sky Pillar token. He secretly guessed that the 6 disciples should be Yun Yao, Bai Wuchen, Hao Meng, and the others. They were all elite geniuses in the sect. In that case, wouldn't my position and power in the sect be the same as Yun Yao and the other elite geniuses? I only helped Yun Yao find Ji Ling's soul. It's enough for sect leader to reward me with 3 dew pills. Why did he reward me with a sky-raising token? This reward seems a little heavy. Although Ji Tianqing had obtained the Atlas Command Badge that many disciples yearned for even in their dreams, this was a great honor. However, he didn't feel much excitement in his heart. Instead, he felt more puzzled and puzzled. He could clearly feel that sect leader Chu Tianqing seemed to have the intention of supporting him. However, this was a good thing for him. He really did need the authority brought by the sky-raising token to make it easier for him to move around the sect. While pondering silently in his heart, Ji Tianqing hurriedly accepted the white jade bottle and the sky-raising token and bowed to Chu Tianqing to thank him. Thank you for the reward, sect leader. This disciple will cultivate diligently and not let the sect down. Very good. Chu Tianqing nodded and encouraged him with a gratified expression. With your strength at the true energy realm, you were able to help Yun Yao complete the mission and escape the demon cave alive. This is really rare. It also proves that your aptitude is outstanding and your future is bright. From now on, you must not slack off. You must cultivate diligently and enter the inner sanctum in the future to become a mainstay of the sect. This is the only way to live up to my expectations of you. Ji Tianqing could tell that this was not the polite words that the sect leader used to encourage ordinary disciples. Sect leader Chu Tianqing obviously had high hopes for him and might even entrust him with important tasks in the future. Thinking of this, Ji Tianqing thanked him again and then left the sky-raising hall. After leaving the Crimson Cloud Peak, he saw that it was still early, so he didn't return to the Wind Cloud Courtyard. Instead, he went straight to the mountain peak to hide. After this mission, Ji Tianqing realized that he was unfamiliar with the other regions outside the Tianshan region. Apart from the Tianshan region, he didn't know about the other regions or the situation of the entire continent. If he wanted to quickly understand the various regions and the entire continent, the fastest way was of course to read and consult the history books. The inner sanctum at the peak of the mountain was a restricted area. Ji Tianqing didn't have the qualifications to enter in the past. Now, it was different. With the sky-raising token in his hand, he could enter and leave all the important places in the sect at will. The inner sanctum was different from the martial arts pavilion. The martial arts pavilion was filled with martial arts cultivation techniques, as well as recipes and secret manuals for miscellaneous studies. However, there were no cultivation techniques or secret manuals in the library. There were only various history books, biographies, and ancient documents. The sky-raising sect was an ancient sect with thousands of years of history. It paid the most attention to inheritance and heritage. Therefore, the sky-raising sect's library could be said to be the largest and most complete library in the Tianshan region. There were hundreds of thousands of books in the entire library. They contained all kinds of strange knowledge and information, from astronomy and geography to local customs and so on. There was nothing that it didn't contain. When Ji Tianqing entered the library, he was stopped by the black-robed deacon who was guarding the door. He took out the sky-raising token and handed it to the black-robed deacon. The black-robed deacon was stunned on the spot. His face was filled with surprise and disbelief. The black-robed deacon knew very well that there were only 6 disciples in the entire sect who had the sky-raising token. They were all the elite geniuses in the inner sanctum. Ji Tianqing was only an outer sanctum disciple, but he actually had a sky-raising token. This was simply too unbelievable. If it wasn't for the sect master's special mark on the sky-raising token that couldn't be replicated, the black-robed deacon would have even doubted the authenticity of this token. After the black-robed deacon let him go with a complicated expression, Ji Tianqing entered the library and began to flip through various history books and biographies. He shuttled through the rows of bookshelves for a while before finding 2 books. He sat in front of the desk by the window and read them seriously. One of the books was General History of the Tian-Xian Continent. It mainly talked about the changes in history and geography of the Tian-Xian Continent for the past 3,000 years. The other book was 9 Regions Wind and Cloud Records. It wrote about the 1,000 years of changes in the 9 regions of the Tian-Xian Continent, as well as various strange stories. To other inner sanctum disciples, these 2 books were very ordinary and didn't pique their interest at all. However, to Ji Tianqing, who had never come into contact with such information, it was novel and interesting. The library was silent. The sunlight shone through the window onto the desk, illuminating his serious and focused face. At this moment, a beautiful young girl in a green dress walked into the Tibetan area. When she glanced at Ji Tianqing, who was focused on reading by the window, she couldn't help but be startled. Then, a faint smile appeared on her lips. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.